Hey fellas, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto got betrayed and became the Red X with an Ancient Jutsu in Teen Titans? Part 4. Huge shout out to 26 Lord Pain for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. Hive HQ. The blonde teen was moving from scroll to scroll, placing those he was finished with into his duffel bag all day. At the moment he was sitting in the middle of the room looking at several scrolls all at once. Alright, it's high time I deal with the Nitwit Neem Brigade. Obviously, even if I do win and they back off, they'll keep trying to capture me at some point in the foreseeable future. But I can't kill them, that just isn't my style. Besides, I'd be no better than Sasuke if I actually killed them. Naruto thought to himself while frowning, then heard someone knock on his door. Who is it? He asked from his spot without turning away from the scrolls. Jinx. The girl's voice came simply, though she sounded like she had a migraine, and Naruto turned an eye to the door and let out a soft sigh. Come on in, Jinx, he said, and the door opened, the girl entering and looking around the teen's finely furnished and decorated room for the first time. The room was of average size, with a simple gray carpet over the floor. The walls were painted black, due only because Naruto hated the idea of white walls because they made him think of hospitals. Red just didn't look right, and any other color he had access to was stupid. He had a row of shelves placed on one wall with numerous trinkets and photos covering them, an average bed off to the side with a couple plain sheets, a door to her left led to a private bathroom, and he had a closet to her right where he stored his clothes, while near his bed was a dresser where he put his ninja gear. And a device Gizmo made was the last thing in the room, which was a container for the X suit when it wasn't in use. At the moment, however, the room was covered by dozens of scrolls lying everywhere around it, Naruto smack dab in the middle. What's up? Naruto asked from his spot while still looking over the scrolls, and the girl looked around, noting the dozens of scrolls lying around and that he was reading one of them while sitting cross-legged on the floor. Do I want to know what you're doing with this place? She questioned, and Naruto shook his head no with an amused smirk on his lips. Alright then, I won't bother asking, but how was your trip last night, Temp? Jinx questioned, and Naruto blinked before a smirk came to his lips. Interesting, was all he said before returning to his scrolls, and Jinx huffed before looking at the scrolls once more. What are you doing in here anyways? Jinx asked while flipping onto the teen's bed and looking over his shoulder. I thought you weren't going to ask, but if you really must know, I'm checking some of my mom's old family scrolls, he said simply while rolling one up before tossing it into his duffel bag. What for? Jinx then questioned, one hand holding her head up while the rest of her body was straight out on his bed. Checking on some of the tricks I use. A few of them I only have a basic knowledge of. Most jutsu are pretty complex, so I'm making sure I haven't missed something important about any of them, Naruto said simply while looking at one about the chakra claws. Noting that it had a big brother in terms of power that let you push wind into the claws to allow them to stretch out for a wider range of attack. Might have to try that one. Naruto mused to himself, then rolled that scroll up and put it into his nightstand to read up on the technique later. Why haven't you done that before, Temp? She questioned while leaning forward, her chin resting on his shoulder. Because I didn't feel like it. Besides that, at the time I didn't have to worry about Sasuke team. Naruto grumbled angrily while Jinx giggled at the nickname for her friend's former best friend. Don't worry, Tempest, he ever comes around here, you got all of us to help you deal with him, Jinx said with a smile and a fist in the air, Naruto chuckling with a shake of his head at her own antics. Hearing the confidence in her voice made Naruto briefly consider telling Jinx about his upcoming battle with the Konoha flunkies and asking for her help, but shook the idea off. This is my problem, I can't let her or the others get involved with things from my past, or let them get hurt because of them, the blonde thought to himself before looking to his side with a frown. Yeah, I know, Naruto said, then took a thoughtful expression while looking at his X suit. Speaking of which, with that Naruto got up, Jinx falling face first from his bed and glaring at the teen's back before quickly closing her legs and flipping forward to her feet. Thankful the blonde hadn't been able to see her with her skirt hanging down again. I need to get Gizmo to cheek this thing. That fight with Blackfire really did a number on the helmet, Naruto said, then muttered the end while walking out of the room while seemingly ignoring the fact Jinx wasn't on the bed anymore. Jinx let out a quick breath once the blonde was gone, only to yelp when he stuck his head back inside. Also, black panties today? What's the occasion? Naruto asked with a grin before ducking out of the room, as Jinx blushed bright red before turning around and saw a mirror near the X-suit. I hate it when he does that, she muttered while crossing her arms. I really need to stop wearing skirts around that boy. She then muttered to herself before getting up and brushing her skirt down before walking out of the room and off to find something to do while most of the boys were out. Meanwhile, Naruto walked down the halls of the HQ and then into Gizmo's little workshop, which was a room packed with numerous computers, workstations, and machines for creating and managing his equipment. Looking around for a moment, Naruto walked in with the X-suit and noticed that the bald midget was working on a pair of gauntlets. Something new for me, Giz? Naruto questioned, and Gizmo very nearly jumped out of his skin before turning to look at the blonde with a snarl. Don't sneak up on me like that, freak face! The tiny terror shouted, and Naruto chuckled lightly. I'm a ninja, remember? Naruto quipped in response, and Gizmo just let out a sigh before holding out one of the gauntlets. These are new models for your suit. I've been playing some more Cyborg Shinobi Chronicles recently, and saw a new upgrade that would be up your alley, Gizmo said, and Naruto put the X-suit down onto a nearby table before looking at these. They don't look all that new, Naruto muttered with a frown and saw Gizmo glare at him. These are designed more for combat than armor. They also have a few other special features. Besides that, I haven't finished them yet, Gizmo said angrily, and Naruto held up his wrists in a placating manner. Calm down, Giz, you know I don't mean anything by it, Naruto said, and Gizmo muttered under his breath before turning back to work on the new gauntlets. Hey, where are Mammoth and the others? Naruto then questioned, and Gizmo rolled his eyes. Mammoth, Private Hive, Kid, and Seymour all went out to a baseball game, Gizmo stated, and Naruto blinked rapidly. How can they do that? We're all wanted after all, Naruto questioned and then reminded, and Gizmo gave the blonde a grin. Some of us actually have secret identities for a reason, temp. As for Mammoth and Kid, however, I managed to rig a hologram from Mammoth so he looks like a big guy, and Kid looks like a goth, Gizmo explained while continuing his work, and Naruto nodded his head slowly before looking at the X-suit. Alright, then could you do a check and upgrade on the whole suit while you're at it? It's kind of hard to see in the thermal mode, seeing as everything's different shades of red, and same with night vision only green, they both just don't look right, Naruto said simply, and Gizmo frowned before walking over to the suit and looking at the helmet. I knew I should have used that new equipment, but no, I had to save money, Gizmo muttered to himself while Naruto leaned back into one of his many workstations. I'm heading out, Giz, see you later, Naruto said, and Gizmo gave him a slight wave while he pulled the skull off the front of the helmet and looked at it with a frown before his eyes started to light up and a grin came to his face. With Naruto, however, the blonde was wondering why Gizmo was always making him this stuff, before a thought came to mind. He makes things for Jinx and Mammoth too, but they don't use them as much as I do, and Jinx's stuff is all to make sure her room and electronics don't blow up. Maybe he likes making these things and just doesn't have a lot of people to use them like I do, Naruto figured and nodded to himself. After all, in a world with so many diverse superpowers, it wasn't likely someone with brains like Gizmo would find his gadgets in use by anyone other than himself very often. Ignoring that actually depressing thought, Naruto frowned when he remembered he still had to deal with the Konoha Nin and walked into his room. Seeing as Red X is on the sidelines for the night, looks like Tempest is making another show, Naruto mused with a smirk as he walked over to his closet and pulled out his old costume. First he got out of his civvies, then he pulled on the tight black unbushed shirt with the mask up, he then pulled on his black shinobi pants with his kunai case placed on his right thigh, then his old studded belt around his waist with his two equipment pouches at his lower back. Stretching some, the blonde then pulled his red t-shirt with the black spiral on the right shoulder over that. His black fingerless gloves were next. He then pulled on his Robin-like, steel-plated combat boots, and then his black headband with the red spiral at his forehead. Last, Naruto pulled on his black shin guards and gauntlets, and finally he pulled his black body armor on, zipping it up the front then snapping the two sets of buckles together to hold it on tightly. Naruto then reached into his closet once more and pulled out his old ninjutsu, similar in design to his current one, only with his old sheath having a Y-shaped harness over his chest to stay on tightly. Checking the blade, the blonde then sheathed it with a click and nodded his head while pulling the straps together at his chest with a nod. "Going somewhere, Tempest?" Jinx's voice came and Naruto turned his head to see the girl leaning against the doorframe with a frown. Why are you in here again?" Naruto questioned and Jinx frowned once more. "I wanted to see if you wanted to do something. It's boring around here with all the guys out tonight," she stated before walking over to the blonde, who inwardly cursed his luck as she then poked him in the chest. "Now, care to explain what the hell you're doing dressed up in full ninja gear?" she questioned with an edge to her tone, pink eyes narrowed on the blonde kneeing dangerously. "Just taking a stroll," Naruto offered with a shrug and saw Jinx frown while fixing him with a disbelieving look. "You're going to fight someone dangerous, aren't you?" she stated while crossing her arms, and Naruto hung his head with a groan. "How can you tell?" Naruto questioned and Jinx smirked. 1. You're dressed in full ninja gear. 2. You were researching your techniques all morning long, even skipping lunch and dinner. 3. As far back as I've known you, you never stay in your room all day. 4. You just told me. Jinx explained with a cat-like smirk over her lips, and Naruto could swear the girl only needed cat ears and could pass off as one. "So why weren't you going to tell the rest of us about this?" Jinx questioned with a frown, and Naruto let out a sigh of breath. "It's my problem. I don't want the rest of you getting hurt in one of my fights," Naruto said simply, and Jinx gave him a look before sighing. "Just please be careful, Tempest," she said, and before Naruto could come up with a witty retort, the girl had grabbed him, pulled his mask down, and given him another kiss directly on the lips. The boy was still as Jinx then released him and smiled at the stunned blonde. "For luck," she said simply before walking off with a sway to her hips, while Naruto merely looked after her in shock before shaking his head and pulling his mask back up over his lower face. Why are girls all so confusing? I mean, I like Raven, and yet here Jinx is kissing me at every chance she can. What is with my luck with women lately? I mean, I like Jinx, but do I really like her like that? Naruto started to think before shaking his head furiously and frowning to himself. Alright, Naruto, let's get back to the problem with Konoha's flunkies and then worry about your love life. Wait a second, what am I thinking? Raven and I are just friends. Same with Jinx and me, there's nothing romantic going on between us. Well, Jinx did kiss me, twice now, and she is… Arg. What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I freaking focus? Naruto inwardly demanded while wondering why his thoughts were such a jumble, while rubbing his temples. Taking his mind away from those confusing thoughts, and looking at his reflection in his mirror, the blonde couldn't help a frown that crossed over his features. Something's missing, he muttered, then looked at a scroll he'd had with him since before he found out about Konoha's betrayal. Looks like I'm going to be reviving Konoha's worst nightmare, Naruto whispered while walking over to the scroll. Picking it up, he shivered seeing it was an ominous black color, with a red cloud printed onto the front. Titan's Tower. Raven was frowning to herself as she looked in a book on demons. The reason she was even bothering to look was because of the name Naruto had used. Kyubi no Kitsune, Lord of the Fifth Layer of Hell, representing the sin of wrath, and leader of the nine-tailed beasts known as Bijou in the mortal world. Not much is known of the beast other than it is a large fox with 9 tails, said to be able to cause tsunamis, hurricanes, and earthquakes with a few flicks of its tails. Raven read to herself with a frown while looking at a picture of a massive rust-red fox with black around its eyes that curled into its long ears and almost hand-shaped frontal paws. Closing the book with a frown, Raven wondered why anyone would want to use the name Kyubi no Kitsune. Lying back with a sigh, Raven looked over what she knew about the odd boy known to her as Naruto. He was sarcastic at times, fun when you really got to know him, knowledgeable in many things, didn't seem very serious, and most surprising, he didn't mind her company, and she didn't mind his. Why am I so worked up over this guy? He's just another civilian anyways. She thought to herself, then frowned, remembering the blonde's talk with those two girls from before. Even as a civilian, I can't believe that one girl could willingly cheat on him. I mean, yeah, he can be annoying when he wants to be, but he's really nice otherwise. She thought, then blushed as she shook her head and groaned to herself. As if falling for that damn dragon Melchior wasn't bad enough, now I can't get a guy off my mind. But he does grow on you, yeah, like a fungus. Raven thought, and inwardly she could hear, Happy, laughing at the joke she had made. Groaning, as now she couldn't think with her happy self. All giddy, Raven looked at a clock in her room and frowned. She then remembered that Naruto had set up a meeting to fight with those two girls. Possibly they were ninja as well and they could also have help. I could probably go and check out what he's doing. Maybe see how much of a ninja this boy actually is. Besides, if he gets into some kind of trouble, he'll need some help, right? Raven wondered to herself, but shuddered once as an ominous feeling overtook her body entirely. Somehow, I doubt I'll be needed to help him, but I'm still going. She stated, then got up and walked over to her window, then flew out of it to go to the place Naruto would be meeting with his pursuers. The desert was fairly cool with a nice breeze. The breeze blew by as 5 figures walked out into the desert, soon slowing down as they approached their target. Raven appeared at that moment, and quickly ducked down into a ridge, just high enough to where she could watch the ensuing fight. First, however, she quickly took note of the 5 ninja who were already present. At least she guessed they were ninja from the odd clothing that they were wearing. First at the front was a man with gravity-defying gray hair, a headband with a metal plate covering his left eye and a face mask like Tempest's below that. Over his upper body he had a dark blue shirt with red swirls on the biceps, a pair of fingerless gloves with metal plates at the back, and a green flak jacket of some kind. The rest was a pair of dark blue sandals, with wrappings around his shins, and a pair of black pants with a kunai case at his right thigh. Next to him was a girl with short bubblegum pink hair that could easily pass off as Jinx's sister. She had bright green eyes, however, with a red headband holding her hair back with a metal plate on it, a red zip up top, gray elbow pads, black leather gloves, tight black shorts. A strange skirt over the shorts that was a light pink color with straps around it, and had slits at the sides, and a pair of shin-high sandals, with a kunai case placed on her own right thigh and a tanto placed at her lower back next to a pouch. Then was another boy. This one was fairly good-looking, with long dark hair, but his creepy white eyes put her on edge. He wore a headband like the others with a white robe-like top and pants, a black cloth wrapped around his waist, and black sandals like the rest of them. He seemed to wear traditional garb if Jinx could place the type of outfit that the strange young man was wearing. Then came a platinum blonde whose hair covered one eye that looked like a duplicate of that Terra girl who used to be on the Titans team. She wore a purple button-up tank top that left her midriff bare, a purple skirt that had only one button done in the front with a black skirt under it, with mesh covering her elbows, knees, and under her skirt. A pair of black sandals like the rest of them, and a kunai case on her right thigh, while it seemed she didn't have the headband that the rest of them wore. Last was a girl with a bluish hue to her long hair, and light lavender eyes. She wore a baggy purple and white jacket that barely hid her well-endowed chest, a mesh shirt visible where it was left slightly open, a headband around her neck instead of on her head. Her pants were a bluish color, and her sandals were different than the rest of the groups, and had a kunai case on her right thigh like them. Meanwhile, behind her ridge and cloaked in shadows, Raven saw the ninja and frowned, noting that one was dressed in similar garb to that Sasuke guy. Does that mean they work together? If so, then this is more serious than I thought it was. That Sasuke character was ruthless and Naruto is taking on a group of them while he's all alone. Raven thought with a shudder while the ninja were looking around, probably for Naruto himself. Where is that baka? The pink-haired one, Sakura if Raven remembered correctly, questioned, and the violet-eyed sorceress twitched. Somehow, I know she just insulted him, and I don't like that. She thought to herself with narrowed eyes while the gray-haired man was looking at an erotica book of all things. Pervert. Raven thought with a frown while narrowing her eyes towards the man. Calm down, Sakura-chan, he'll be along, eventually. Kakashi started, then looked up and stopped, his single eye going wide as it took in a figure whose back was to the full moon out. Kakashi Taicho, what's The blonde Ano started only to look up and gasp, the rest of the ninja and Raven looking to what had them so freaked out. Raven recognized them as well as a hive students she had seen, but he was now wearing 10 rings with kanji on them, one placed on each finger with a long tattered black cloak with a hood and red on the inside of it, the cloak having a single red cloud at the front of his chest while an orange spiral mask covered his face from view, leaving a single eye hole to stare out at them ominously on the right. "He looks like Madara," Kakashi whispered as Naruto sat cross-legged with his arms crossed, the rings of the Akatsuki still plainly visible. How did he recover the Akatsuki's rings? Better yet, why did he recover their rings? Kakashi couldn't help but wonder while looking up towards the ominous figure sitting above them. "I see you didn't bring Sasuke team with you," Naruto stated simply, and Raven blinked then groaned to herself. "Alright, so they are Sasuke's allies. This could get more messy than I thought," she thought to herself while Kakashi, as she heard it, shrugged his shoulders for a moment. "Sasuke's still healing from his last battle. He needs to learn a lesson, and we felt it would be better for him to be left out of this fight. Besides, we need you alive and he'd have killed you on the spot," Kakashi said simply, and Raven twitched once more, wondering why she was getting so mad. Naruto, however, merely rolled his eyes while placing his hands onto his knees, the colored gems of the 10 rings on his fingers glowing ominously in the moonlight. "Kakashi, I'll tell all of you Konoha flunkies one last time," Naruto said darkly while rising to his feet, and Kakashi and the other nin quickly moved into defensive positions. "Leave me the freak alone and I won't have to hurt you," Naruto said darkly, and Kakashi shivered before narrowing his eye. "Sorry Naruto, we can't do that and you know it. You're at least an S-class missing nin, and normally I wouldn't go anywhere near someone with that amount of skill, but Hokage-sama wants you returned to the village alive and I'll do as Hokage-sama wants," Kakashi said simply, and Naruto frowned behind Madara's old mask while looking down at them. "Then you leave me no choice but to revive Konoha's worst nightmare tonight," the blonde said before vanishing, Kakashi's eyes wide as the blonde now stood beside him and Niji. "Shadow Claw Taijutsu Style 2, the art of the shadow dance." With that said, Naruto lashed out, sending both Kakashi and Niji flying to the sides while the boy seemingly vanished once more. However, after looking around, Raven spotted Naruto running at amazing speeds for a civilian, as he then ducked under Kakashi and kicked upwards, sending the man flying up into the sky above. "He's fast," was all Raven could think as Naruto then jumped up into the air, grabbing Kakashi by his throat. As they came down, Naruto plunged his fist into the man's face, driving him deep into the ground as they landed. Sakura attacked at that moment with a swing of her fist, but the blonde teen easily evaded her as her fist hit the ground, breaking it apart. "She's stronger than Star," Raven thought with shock as Naruto then grabbed Sakura by her wrist. "I'm through allowing you to hit me, Haruno." With that, Naruto spun on in the air and judo tossed the pinkette from his shoulder and straight into the side of a nearby cliff, Raven grimacing at the sight as the cliff fell down. "He doesn't know the meaning of holding back with her, does he?" she thought to herself while Naruto shimmered for a second when an orb of energy seemed to hit him in the back. "Got him!" Naruto then said while Ino fell over, and Raven was surprised to see someone shoot her soul self out of his or her own body and into that of another person. "Okay, so maybe he does know people weirder than I am." She aloud then saw that Kakashi guy slowly get up with a groan while rubbing his throat and face. "Impressive, Ino-chan, but I don't think you got the right person," Kakashi said with a light chuckle, and Naruto's body poofed into a plume of smoke, becoming Kakashi's body instead while Kakashi shimmered into Naruto's form. "I think you got your Taicho instead," Naruto said darkly before crouching and lunging forward with a fist to Kakashi's gut, sending him and the girl presently possessing his body flying back into her real body. Niji decided to attack at that moment, throwing his palms out towards the boy in a Juken strike, but the ex-nin deftly dodged and rolled to the side. "Shadow Claw Taijutsu Style 4. The art of the open palm," Naruto suddenly said while taking a strange stance as Niji came at him, only for the blonde to spin around him and push him to the ground with an open palm. Niji quickly got back to his feet and into a Juken stance before lunging at the blonde-haired nin, only to be shocked when Naruto moved his palms into an intricate pattern, diverting every one of his strikes before then slamming his palm into Niji's chest and sending him flying back into Sakura as the girl was getting back up. Kakashi and Ino then got up, but Naruto lashed out quickly, tossing several kunai towards them. The two evaded them but went wide-eyed, seeing the explosive notes wrapped around the handles. Boom! Naruto said darkly, and the tags exploded, sending both flying away as he turned his back to the flames and stalked towards Niji and Sakura. Art is a bang! Naruto said with a dark chuckle as he formed a Rasengan into his left hand. Wouldn't you two say so? With that, the blonde jumped into the air and slammed his Rasengan into the ground, sending a shockwave rippling through the ground and creating a massive spiral-shaped crater around them. Note to self, do not allow the others to piss Naruto off unless they have some kind of deep-seated need to have their asses kicked. Raven thought to herself dryly with a nearly gaping jaw as the blonde stood with his back to the flames of the explosion where Kakashi and Ino had been, painting an ominous picture as his entire form was cloaked in shadow. Niji, however, groaned as he got back to his feet and stared at the form of Naruto in the center of the new crater around them. Throughout this entire fight, he's limited himself to Tai and Kenjutsu. The only ninjutsu he's used besides a Kawamari and Henge is his Rasengan. He's not even using his shadow clones, and he's tearing us apart. Although he hasn't given us time to let us try any of our own jutsu, this is still very troubling. At this rate, we'll need to kill him just to survive. Niji thought while panting, and Sakura groaned, her head still ringing from being slammed into a hill and then having Niji slammed into her also. Still think Naruto-kun is weak? I asked Quip dryly, and Sakura muttered a simple shut up under her breath while looking at the blonde with a frown. If you give up now, I won't have to go full force and critically harm you, Naruto then said simply while he looked to his left to see Hinata was staring at him from the ground. We can't, the girl said with a stutter, and Naruto shook his head, then turned it when he noticed Kakashi getting up finally pull his Hittite up. Then I'm sorry, but I cannot allow myself to lose to any of you tonight, Naruto said darkly, moving quickly and chopped at the girl's neck, knocking her out and catching her before she hit to place her down gently. Nighty-night, Hinata, sweet dreams, he thought to himself while turning towards Kakashi. The man growled and quickly began to form hand seals for a jutsu, but Naruto's eyes narrowed. And if that means I have to beat you all to within an inch of your lives, then I sadly have no other option, Naruto said while reaching to his shoulder and pulled his sword free from the hole he made in his cloak for its hilt. But to fight you all like I would my true enemies. With that, Naruto crouched and swung his sword, sending a bust of wind from its blade that knocked Kakashi onto his back. Sealless wind jutsu, Kakashi said mostly to himself, then cursed as a blade of wind came towards him from the blade of his former student. This is bad. Wind jutsu are perfect for attacking long range by extending the reach of his sword or even using them to knock us back. With Naruto using them seamlessly, we have to worry about what jutsu he's going to use next. Not to mention the fact Naruto has ungodly stamina and otherworldly stores of chakra. No wonder he killed Madara. Kakashi thought to himself while watching the blonde-haired boy spin on his heels, then lash out at Niji, sending him flying back before spinning gracefully and lashing out with another burst of wind to Sakura, knocking he off her feet. He controls the wind? Raven questioned while watching the blonde suddenly vanish once more, only to reappear a distance from the group of ninja. Didn't Red X control the wind? And that thing, Rasengan, wasn't it? X used that on Cyborg. Raven mused to herself with narrowed-eyed on the blonde-haired teen. Just who are you? She wondered to herself silently. Naruto, we can't lose tonight either, Kakashi said as his eye changed and Naruto instantly tensed. He hated that fucking Mangekyo. So I'm sorry, but... With that, Kakashi tried to use his dimensional rift on the blonde's left arm, hoping to stop the boy from using any truly dangerous jutsu, only to miss when Naruto moved at the last second, taking his sword apart instead. The blonde landed in a crouch and breathed a silent, relieved sigh while looking at his sword's hilt and tossed it to one side. So I have to deal with that fucking Mangekyo Sharingan of yours too then? Naruto mused with a frown, and Raven frowned. Sharingan was something Sasuke had, and since this gray-haired guy had it, wouldn't that mean they're somehow related or working together? Also, Red X had mentioned the Sharingan. That would mean that not only was Naruto an actual ninja from the look of it, but Red X as well. I didn't want to have to use it, Naruto, but we must return you to Konoha immediately, Kakashi stated, and Naruto frowned darkly beneath his mask before crouching down further. Well then, Kakashi Baka, looks like I have to deal with you like I would Sasuke or Madara, Naruto said darkly, and Kakashi inwardly grimaced while quickly pulling a kunai from his thigh and held it at the ready. However, Naruto quickly shimmered out of existence, as he had many times before, appearing behind the man whose eyes widened. Before the man could react, Naruto had already moved, grabbing him by the neck. The teen then tossed him over his shoulder and formed a swirling sphere in his hand. Rasengan! He called out as he slammed the sphere into the old man's gut, sending him flying back and into the side of a cliff, where the Rasengan shredded his flak jacket and left him falling forward, only to poof out of existence. Kage Bunshin, that's my thing, Naruto said mostly to himself, then quickly turned when he saw Kakashi finish with several seals. Shit! He thought, until Kakashi quickly placed his hands to the ground. Kuchios, Tsuga no Jutsu! Kakashi called out as his nin dogs appeared and moved forward quickly, latching onto Naruto as the blonde grunted in pain. Damn, so this is how Zabuza felt all those years ago. It sucks, man, Naruto thought to himself while Kakashi gave a sigh of relief. Now then. Seeing as I've finally got you, Naruto, you're still coming with us, Kakashi stated while looking at the blonde, only to hear a chuckle come from him before a red glow escaped the singular eye hole of his orange spiral mask. Fool! I still have an ace in the hole, Naruto said darkly while expelling his chakra from his body and concentrating. 1,000 blades jutsu! He called out as thousands of blades of wind lashed out at the dogs holding onto him, all of the summons disappearing out of existence as he did so. Kakashi looked on in shock at this before groaning lightly, as Naruto's red-eyed stare seemed to abate, leaving the dark hole of his mask completely black once more. We don't seem to have to worry about him using Kyuubi. That would be overkill at this point, Kakashi thought, then looked at the others and saw that the least damaged of them all was an unconscious Hinata, Ino behind her, with Sakura having taken a harsher physical beating than the other girls. However, before Kakashi could think more on this matter, he noted Naruto sway before falling to one side and disappearing in a plume of smoke. Kakashi's eyes widened seeing this, and looking to the sword that he had cut in half, he saw it also poof out of existence. Kage Bunshin, but how? Kakashi questioned with disbelief obvious in his tone and heard clapping. Turning quickly, he saw Naruto, still dressed like Madara, clapping his hands while leaning back into a cliff wall. Kage Bunshin is an amusing little jutsu. It takes a person's chakra and splits it evenly between the original and his copies. The Kage Bunshin also has the unique trait of sending all of its experiences back to the original as well, making it perfect for scouting missions and for training. In essence, I could train for a year by only training a day in real time by using a couple hundred of them, Naruto explained before pushing off of the side of the cliff with his arms crossing. However, this is a waste of a powerful jutsu. Making a physical clone with half of one's power should be much more useful than a one-shot that is dispelled with even the slightest damage. However, by allowing it half of my chakra, it obviously had more than enough power to weaken you all down for me, Naruto mused to himself, and Kakashi plainly stared at the blonde with wide eyes before quickly taking a stance. Now, Kakashi. You're too quick to anger, but then again, that actually explains where Sasuke team gets it. Naruto mused and saw Kakashi twitch angrily while Ino, Sakura and Neji all got up and stood behind the older nin. So you have 4 fighters able and willing. Not good odds, Naruto mused before forming 3 hand seals, much to Kakashi's shock. For you, Chidori, Naruto said darkly, then exclaimed while holding his lightning-coated fist at his side. But how? I never taught you the Chidori, Kakashi said with obvious shock and very thinly hidden anger in his voice, making Naruto chuckle. I have a wind and lightning affinity, Kakashi Baka. I am not only well versed in wind jutsu, but lightning as well. They're merely more destructive than my wind jutsu, so I don't tend to use them too often. As for how I know Chidori, however, Naruto explained, then started with obvious annoyance. I've had a Chidori rammed through both sides of my chest, through my gut, through my heart, and very nearly my head. I fucking remember what it felt like. That was the first part of recreating it. Then add to the fact I've seen it more than a half dozen times and actually have a photographic memory. It was pretty easy to learn in the end, Naruto said simply with a grin hidden behind his mask. So you're going to use that against me? Kakashi questioned and Naruto scoffed. No. I wouldn't use your own attack against you. I want to show you how I improved it, however, Naruto said darkly as he held the Chidori up and began to weave the lightning chakra, forming an electrified Rasengan. Chidori no Rasengan! Swirling sphere of the 1,000 birds! Naruto said, shocking Kakashi before the blonde then lunged forward, and then slammed the new attack into Kakashi's gut, sending the man screaming back. The attack also ripped the ground around Kakashi apart, bolts of lightning spreading out before the Rasengan dug into his body as he hit the side of another cliff with an explosion. Kakashi-sensei! Sakura called out before rushing over to help the man while Naruto looked at Ino and then Neji. Do you really think you stand half a chance? He questioned and both looked to one another and slowly went to pick up Hinata. If you think we'll be gone for good, don't count on it. We'll be back even stronger next time, Ino said quickly before she and Neji both moved over to Sakura and Kakashi, all three shunshing out of the area while Naruto merely watched, a grin crawling over his lips as he did. I'm counting on it. I can always use a good workout here and there after all, Naruto said before turning and shaking his head. Karasuchan, you can both stop hiding now, he said with a slightly amused tone as Raven appeared out of the shadows with a frown on her face. How long did you know I was there? The violet-eyed empathy questioned and Naruto chuckled. Since the beginning. Did you like the show? Naruto said then questioned and Raven frowned once more. You could have killed them, Raven said flatly while crossing her arms and Naruto nodded his head in agreement. I could have, but then again, they could have killed me as well if I hadn't known them all so well. Besides, I'd be no better than Sasuke team if I did kill them, Naruto stated rather plainly and watched as Raven grimaced while conceding his point. I also now know you're at least a member of the Hive, Tempest, right? Raven said then questioned and Naruto gave a curt bow before reaching up and pushing down his cloak's hood while removing his orange spiral mask. Yeah, I bet. Stone. Told you, huh? Naruto questioned and Raven nodded her head slowly while crossing her arms. He said Tempest was some kind of a wind elemental ninja. That was all he said other than he was probably going to break his legs for what happened between him and Jinx. Raven said then mused and Naruto blinked before snickering. Oh yeah, I broke one of her boyfriend's legs for being a dick to her. After she broke up with him and gave me the okay at least. Naruto mused and Raven looked at the blonde before shuddering to herself. That's a little on the psychotic side, she said and Naruto frowned. Nobody fucks with my friends so long as I gotta say about it, he said simply and Raven couldn't help but admire that. She was the same way when it came to her own friends after all. So, what exactly have our meetings been about then? Raven then asked with narrowed eyes and Naruto blinked before frowning. Honestly, he knew Raven would be on edge. Who wouldn't be if they found out a new friend was also a part-time criminal? I just like hanging out with you, and everything I told you was the truth, so I wasn't trying to get info on your friends or anything like that, Naruto stated simply while crossing his own arms and Raven frowned before sighing. So do you honestly expect me to lie to my friends about who you really are then? Raven questioned and Naruto rubbed his chin. Well, you have no proof of anything beyond me being Tempest, and Tempest has never done anything beyond blow up the old Hive Academy and beat up the accomplices to Sasuke team, and even then it's only your word, Naruto offered and saw an annoyed look on Raven's face. I hate technicalities, she muttered and Naruto chuckled lightly. I love them, he said while walking off, Raven at his side. So what now? She questioned and Naruto took a thoughtful expression. You free tomorrow? He asked and Raven raised a brow while giving him a strange look. Pending that nobody threatens to destroy the city, of course. Naruto then amended and Raven bit her lip before nodding. Then how about I take you to catch a flick in town? Naruto offered with a smirk, and Raven looked at him strangely once more before frowning. Why is it we seem to go on excursions that seem a little too much like dates when we're just acquaintances? Raven questioned of the blonde-haired boy, who looked mock thoughtful for a few moments. Maybe we're not just acquaintances, he offered with a smirk, and Raven twitched before crossing her arms and looking at him with one eye. I barely know you, she stated, and Naruto scoffed. You know me better than my old friends knew me, he countered, and Raven tried to think of a comeback before stewing about it. You're a criminal, it would be, Raven tried, and Naruto scoffed. Oh brother, I'm a thief and a wise ass, not really a criminal, Kara-chan. I'm only dangerous to people who fuck with my friends, and you kids are so. Naruto would have said a couple things but thought better of it until Raven spoke up. You could tear most of us apart with only a minor effort, she offered with a slight frown, and Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. I wouldn't have put it so brutally, but that's one of the things I like about you, Kara-chan, Naruto said with a smile, and Raven blushed while looking away from the blonde-haired young man. So, what movies are out? Raven questioned, and Naruto frowned. I heard something called Wicked Scary 2 came out recently, he offered, and Raven shivered. Somehow she knew she wouldn't like that movie. How about something that doesn't involve a green creature with evil flailing tentacles and multiple mouths? Raven asked, and Naruto shrugged with a smirk on his face. We'll see when we get there then. If nothing good is out, then we can always head to your cafe and just enjoy each other's company. Or even go to that bookstore and grab a good book. Naruto mused, and Raven blinked before nodding her head slowly to the blonde. Cool. Then I'll be seeing you later, Kara-chan. With that, Naruto vanished in a plume of smoke, and Raven looked all around for him. And to think, he's more like me than I thought, she mused with a slight frown before pulling the shadows from the ground to wrap around her as she went home as well. It was going to be interesting for her living in Jump City from now on, that was for sure. Sakura sighed as she finished healing the extremely nasty wound on Kakashi, the older man groaning in pain even when she was done. On his gut and some of his chest was now a large, ugly spiral-shaped scar. Even with her healing, she'd been unable to repair the damage left by that attack of Naruto's. To think, I thought Naruto could never learn Chidori, Kakashi murmured before grunting in pain, then passing out as Sakura got up and walked out of the room to see the others nursing their own wounds, Hinata helping heal those she could while Ino was lying back with a headache. He totally beat the shit out of us, Ino said while laying down, then grimaced while holding her head. He was playing with us as well, Niji reminded while Hinata finished with his wounds and moved over to heal Ino. And you said we shouldn't take Sasuke-kun, Sakura reminded, and then got glares from the rest of those in the room. You're an idiot, I swear. He took all 4 of us out with only a shadow clone. What do you think Sasuke could have done to him that would have let us win? Ino questioned, and Sakura gaped before huffing and looking to the side while Ayase was mentioning the same thing, making the pinkette more annoyed. And maybe we should just concentrate on going home. If Naruto-kun wants to stay here, he should be allowed to after all he's done for Konoha, Hinata said timidly, and Niji sighed while shaking his head. Even if we wanted to, we can't. We don't have any clue how to use the technique Naruto used to get us here in the first place. Thus no way for us to return home till we manage to capture him, Niji said simply, and Hinata nodded while still healing Ino's wounds. Not like it makes a difference. Even if we somehow do catch him, it's not like he'll just happily make us a way home so we can drag him away, Ino reminded, and Niji nodded his head with a frown while Sakura rubbed her own injuries. What are all of you so worried about? That Baka was the worst in the academy. He isn't strong enough to. Sakura started only for Ino to toss a kunai that cut her on the cheekbone, surprising and scaring the girl. In the academy I couldn't aim a kunai to save my life. If I had thrown that, then you'd be missing an eye, Ino said in a deadly tone while Sakura reached up and healed the wound on her cheek slowly. If I can get better at that, then Naruto can get better than all of us, Ino then said sagely while sitting up once her wounds had all been fully healed. And let's not forget Sakura, he did kill Uchiha Madara himself, though you like to forget that a lot, Miss Cheater, Ino said angrily, and Sakura winced while turning away and walking off. What was that about? Hinata questioned and Ino debated whether or not to tell her of Sakura's adultery, and decided against it. After all, she didn't need Hinata killing Sakura while she had first dibs on killing the pink-haired bitch that she had once called her best friend. Naruto may have been annoying, but he had also been the single nicest guy in all of Konoha and one of her friends, and like Naruto, Ino didn't like it when anyone fucked with her friends, least of all her other supposed friends. Titan's Tower. Raven yawned as she walked into the Titan's Ops Center, more often referred to as the common room. The walls were all made from solid steel colored white with red near the floor of the room like the carpeting, with sliding doors that activated when someone neared them. It had an enormous TV at the end of the room with windows covering the rest of that wall and several miniature computers below the windows, a C-shaped couch before the massive TV, while to the back right of the room was an area akin to a kitchen and dining room with a table. And everything while to the back left was a normal couch with a table before it and a clock above it. Looking around, she then noticed that BB and Sai were playing a video game at the large couch while Robin was sitting at the dining table with a cup of coffee half finished. "No argument today?" she questioned, and Robin frowned towards the girl. "Raven, breakfast was several hours ago. You've been asleep all morning," Robin stated, and Raven blinked then looked at the clock. She frowned, seeing she had slept well past when she normally would. Hell, she had even somehow outslept Beast's boy. "Sorry, I was up late last night," Raven said while walking to get some herbal tea and didn't see Robin frown. "Why were you late last night?" Robin questioned, and Raven very nearly stiffened, but managed not to as she calmly pulled the tea from the cupboard. "I was meeting Naruto late for a chat," she said simply, leaving out the parts about him unleashing true hell onto a bunch of ninja for pissing him off. "Dude, you and that Naruto guy sure hang out a lot," BB called out from his spot and then grinned. "Raven's gotta." He started only for Cyborg to place a hand onto the green teen's face and nudge towards said Dark Titan. BB paled, seeing as she was looking at him with a one-eyed death glare, but black tendrils were hovering just under her cloak. "Finish that sentence and I promise you will pay dearly," Raven said darkly, and BB nodded before turning back to his game shakily, Cyborg snickering as he did so. Ignoring them and the fact it looked like the game had ninja and cyborg armor, Raven went back to her tea and was pleased when it was finally done. Unfortunately, Starfire chose that time to enter the room and hug the Dark Titan, annoying her until Star let go and went on to her next victim of her death hugs, Robin. "Is it not a most glorious morning, friends?" Starfire asked in her usual cheery tone, and Raven rolled her eyes. "It's about average," she said, and Robin gave her a look that said not to spoil the alien girl's day. "Even so, the sun is shining brightly, the birds are making their wonderful songs of chirping, and the sky is clear of the storm clouds. Perhaps we could have an outing on this most glorious day, my friends?" Starfire questioned, and Raven frowned. "Pass." With that, the Dark Titan walked out of the room while Star blinked, then looked to BB and Sai, both looking to one another before ducking down. "Sorry, Star, we're busy," BB said, and Sai took over for the green teen. "Yeah, I need to fix up the tea cart today," Sai said, and Star turned to look at Robin with a pair of bright eyes, and the poor leader of the Titans couldn't help but give in. "All right, Star, where would you like to?" Before he could finish, a happy Starfire had grabbed him and then flew off with the boy wonder to parts unknown. "Dude, he really needs to learn how to say no to Star," BB said, and Cyborg nodded his head in agreement before both grinned and returned to their game, destroying evil Cyborg Ninja, with their own custom Cyborg Ninja. Meanwhile, Raven walked into her room and took another sip of her tea before blinking as a few memories from last night caught up with her, and she twitched. "I have a date," she said with some amount of shock while a couple books nearby went flying, much to her embarrassment. "I just hope that doesn't happen tonight," she murmured before putting her tea down, and set about fixing the damage she had done to her room just because of the shock of actually having a date. Finishing with reshelving the books, Raven then looked around and picked her tea back up before sighing. "If I even want to go, I have to make sure I don't lose control," she said as she finished her tea, and then sent the cup into the sink via a small portal. With that done, Raven sat cross-legged a foot off the ground and closed her eyes with a breath. Azarath, Mitri, and Zinthos, Raven began before chanting her mind and attempting to center herself. High base. Naruto walked into the common room of his own home, dressed in his own civvies. He had just got out of the shower after working out some in the gym. Looking around, he saw Mammoth and Private were arm wrestling and shook his head. He then noticed that Jinx was looking at him strangely from her place on the couch and raised a brow to her. "Where are you going?" she asked with a raised brow, and the blonde teen blinked before smirking. "Out into the city," he said simply, figuring that telling them he'd be on a date would end up with them either following him or trying to figure out who his date was with, and he didn't need that. Jinx shrugged her shoulders after hearing his answer, however, and the blonde smirked as he turned and walked out of the building, wondering what new adventure today was going to bring. Titan's Tower. Raven had managed to center herself. At least she hoped she had, as she felt calm yet nervous at the same time. She had even taken a shower in order to relax, but she was still slightly nervous about the concept of a date. The closest thing to a date she'd ever been on had been when Melchior had tricked her into freeing him after all. Shaking her head, Raven looked at her reflection in the mirror of her private bathroom and frowned. "I'm too recognizable," she said to herself, as the entire team had a problem with their fans coming for autographs when they went to public places. This wasn't a problem at the cafe or at the bookstore, because everyone who frequented them had either gotten used to her, or plain old didn't want to know her, and went about their daily lives. Thus they tended to ignore her, while others in Jump City actively liked talking to the heroes of the city and get autographs and whatnot to show and brag about to their friends. Shaking her head, Raven stopped looking at herself with a sigh, a thought of being too pale to be normal going through her mind for the millionth time in her life, it seemed. Walking back into her room, she went to her closet and twitched upon seeing almost nothing but her usual outfit within. "I need a wider wardrobe," she mumbled while reaching into the closet and moving the clothes here and there. She found one outfit that wasn't Azarian in descent. Instead, it was something that Starfire had convinced her to get, as she said it suited her, while looking less heroic when they had been at the mall for one of her usual shopping marathons. Looking at the outfit, Raven was silently thankful she had indeed gotten it, as otherwise she'd kind of feel foolish. Unwrapping the blue towel from around herself, Raven first got her underwear on, then pulled on the pair of black hip hugger jeans Starfire had got for her. Shaking her head, Raven then pulled on a simple black t-shirt. Her chain belt was then placed around her hips, and she pulled on a pair of blue sneakers Starfire got for her. Somehow, Raven wasn't sure this would work, then turned to look at her bathroom mirror and frowned, remembering her hair and the jewel at her forehead were both highly recognizable. Walking back to her closet, the girl reached in and sifted through it before finding a zip-up blue hooded jacket, and blinked several times. "Why haven't I worn this yet?" she wondered to herself before shrugging and pulling it on and walking to her bathroom and looking at herself. Pulling the hood up, Raven was pleased that she looked just different enough from herself to fool the usual fans, and her skin could easily pass off as her being a goth or something. Knowing Naruto was a ninja meant she wouldn't have to worry about him not recognizing her, as she supposed he had to be pretty observant, plus he seemed to know where she was no matter what at times. Pulling the hood back down, Raven walked out of her room and went to tell the others she was going out so their fearless leader wouldn't freak out. Walking into the common room, it was Beast Boy who saw her first and gaped from his spot on the couch. "What?" Raven asked, and BB pointed at her. Robin looked from where he and Cyborg were on the C-shaped couch, and Starfire moved her head from behind the fridge to see what was going on. "Raven! You look normal!" he called out, and Raven frowned while giving him an annoyed glare. "And what do I normally look like?" she asked with a twitch, and was suddenly grabbed by Starfire into another hug. "I thought I told her to limit herself to only 1 hugs per person," Raven wondered to herself, while Starfire then placed her down and held her by her shoulders. "You look most wonderful, friend Raven. I am pleased to see you are finally wearing the attire I found for you at the mall of shopping," Star said happily, and Raven rolled her eyes. Did it really have to be such a big deal when she changed her clothes? "Whoa, what's the occasion for the change, Ray?" Sai asked, and Raven mentally thanked her titanium friend. "I'm heading out into town. Figured you guys should know before I left," Raven said simply, and Robin frowned with his arms crossed. Where are you going that requires you to be out of uniform, Ray? He questioned, and Raven gave him a cross look. Out with Naruto to a movie, she said simply, and Robin's eyes shot wide open in surprise while Starfire squealed and hugged the girl tightly once more. Seriously, I thought we all agreed that she could only hug us once per day ever since that incident where our bones started breaking. Raven thought, and was finally released by the girl who was speaking rapidly, and she then had BB grinning as he realized what was going on in his head. Dude! Raven has a date! This I gotta see, BB said before turning into a mouse and scampering off to change into some civvies as well. Friend Raven, I am so happy you have finally decided to seek friendship outside of the tower, Starfire said before taking a thoughtful expression and grinning. Maybe we could even have the girl talk once you return about how your date went? Starfire questioned hopefully while Cyborg snickered from his spot. That's really not my thing, Starfire, Raven said with a blush starting to form before pulling the hood of her jacket up. Well, Raven, do you at least have your communicator with you? Robin questioned, and Raven nodded her head. It's set on vibration, she said simply, and Robin nodded his head. Then have a good time, Ray. I got some work to do in the lab, Robin said while getting up, and then walked past her, making Raven narrow her eyes and wonder what he was up to. Well, Ray, think he should get going? It's getting late, Cyborg then said, and Raven pulls a shadow around herself and vanishes. Cyborg then looks around and frowns when he notices a certain someone is missing. Where's BB? He asked, and Starfire looked around before shrugging her shoulders. Come on, Star, go get some civvies. Knowing BB, he'll be following Raven to heckle her with blackmail or something, Cyborg said with a frown, and Starfire rushed off to get herself some of the civvies so she could follow with Cyborg into the city. Jump City streets. Raven appeared in an alley of Jump City before walking out and down the streets, her hands in her coat pockets. She looked around and sighed when no one seemed to notice her. I might actually get used to this, she thought to herself while wondering what Naruto and she would see, praying he didn't want to see. Wicked scary too. I was terrified of the first one. If he takes me to that, I'll probably end up embarrassing myself, she thought to herself with a grimace as she reached the theater and noticed nothing was playing yet. Looks like I'm a bit early for once, she mused, then realized Naruto's hideout could be anywhere in the city. It could take him a while to find her. And Yo, Kara-chan, said Blonde said from behind, scaring the girl nearly out of her skin, as she didn't sense him. Turning, she gave the blonde an annoyed glare and noted he had on a black and red striped bucket hat today, hair still covering his cheeks, with his flak jacket over his red shirt and the rest of his usual attire. What? Was it something I said? Naruto questioned, and Raven rolled her eyes. How do you do that? She questioned, and Naruto chuckled. Ninja, remember, he said simply, then walked with her over to look at what was playing. So, what you want to see, Kara-chan? Naruto questioned, and Raven looked up at him with a raised brow. Why are you calling me that? She questioned, and Naruto chuckled. Using your real name might draw attention to ourselves, Kara-chan. That name or even Karasu work great on the streets because no one knows you under that alias, Naruto explained, and Raven was mildly impressed he had thought this through that far ahead of time. What if someone Japanese hears you say that? Raven countered, and Naruto rolled his eyes. How many Asian people do you honestly expect to find in this city? He countered back, and Raven conceded his pint before looking at the posters on the theater and saw 2 or 3 movies she'd like to see. Underworld, she said simply, and Naruto smirked despite himself. Never heard of it, but it sounds interesting from what Jinx told me about the first and second ones, Naruto admitted while reaching into his jacket to pull out a wallet and checked how much money he had left, and Raven rolled her eyes. It's a prequel to the first one, so you're kind of in luck, she said, and Naruto scratched his head with a frown on his face. Never understood prequels personally. If you want to make something before the original, why not make it first? Naruto mumbled, and Raven smirked before rolling her eyes as they got to the box office. 2 for Underworld, Naruto said to the teen behind the booth, a goth kid who looked really bored. $12 please, he said dully, and Naruto tilted his head down to Raven. Do you know this guy? He asked, and Raven frowned, then nodded her head. I talked to him once while the others were at a dance. He's kind of weird even by my standards, she said simply, and Naruto slowly nodded his head before pulling some money out to pay for his tickets. The goth kid then slid them their tickets while sighing and looking either bored or possibly trying to look apathetic. Okay, what was with that kid? Naruto wondered, and Raven shrugged her shoulders in response. Guys like him are the reason I say I'm not gothic. I just like dark things, Raven said, and Naruto nodded his head in agreement with his date as they entered into the main theater. Behind them a shadow jumped from a tree and onto the roof of the theater, slowly crawling up the building and to a vent, which the figure then crawled within. Want anything before the movie starts? Naruto questioned, and Raven shook her head only for her stomach to protest with a low growl, and the girl blushed slightly. Inwardly, however, she was also cursing about forgetting to have something before she left the tower. I'll get us some popcorn, Naruto then said with a shake of his head, and Raven followed after him, while glaring at her stomach and wondering why it had to betray her. Behind the two, however, a boy wearing sunglasses sat with a grin. On his head was an old fedora hat, with a tan-colored trench coat covering the rest of him, with a brown backpack slung over his shoulders. BB! Came a voice as the person was lifted up and found himself being glared at by a bald African-American teen with a black muscle shirt, red Letterman jacket, jeans, and black running shoes, holding him up into the air. Who are you? BB questioned with a nervous grin and saw the teen's left eye glow red. Sigh. BB started only for Cyborg to place a hand over his mouth. Dude! You look normal, Sigh, BB said quietly after pulling Cyborg's hand from his mouth. Yeah, I fixed those hologram rings up to show me as Victor Stone, who I was before the medal. Now what the hell are you doing here dressed like one of the Ninja Turtles? Sai demanded in a harsh whisper to his green friend, and BB grinned nervously. I like the Ninja Turtles, he offered, and Sai gave him a look. Alright, I couldn't think of anything else for a disguise. And I really do like the Ninja Turtles, BB said, then added, and Cyborg rolled his eyes. Somehow, that didn't surprise him. Question is, Sai, why are you here? BB demanded while pointing at Cyborg, and the titanium teen turned his head to make sure either Raven nor Naruto had noticed them, and saw Naruto getting some popcorn before handing the bucket to Raven. I'm here to stop you from spying on them, Sai said in a whisper once more, and then they both saw Starfire was hiding behind something and following Raven and Naruto. Sapphire was dressed in a purple crop top as usual, with a purple miniskirt as usual, only with silver bracelets around her wrists, her long red hair pulled into a ponytail with a yellow ribbon and braided. A simple silver chain pelt was around her own waist, with white socks coming from a pair of purple slip-on shoes. What's Star doing here? BB questioned, and Cyborg closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. Looks like she wants to spy on them as well, he muttered, and BB managed to get free from Sai and ducked next to Starfire, who looked at him surprised for only a moment till she saw the green fur. Friend Beast Boy, are you worried for friend Raven also? Starfire whispered and got a strange look from BB while Sai picked them both up and placed them on their feet so no one else would notice them. Guys, act natural. We don't need the whole town to know our civvies, Sai said lowly, and both BB and Star nodded at that. They very rarely used them, but when they did they enjoyed the privacy they got. What do you mean worried for Raven, Star? She can take care of herself, BB said, and Starfire wrung her hands together worriedly. It is just that ever since the Malchier betrayed her, friend Raven has been more withdrawn than normal. I do not wish to see her new friend hurt her as he did, and wish to ensure he is not some bad person out to do harm to her, Starfire explained, and Cyborg frowned, having considered that a possibility as well. Well, I got tickets for the movie they're seeing, let's tail them, BB said, holding up the tickets with a grin, and Cyborg frowned. Why did you get more than one of these, BB? Sai questioned, and BB rubbed the back of his neck nervously. I kinda figured you guys might join me, he replied, and Cyborg sighed before they all walked into the theater to spy on Raven and her date. Meanwhile, in their theater, Naruto and Raven had found a pair of seats near the middle row and sat down. The previews for upcoming films were still showing, so they had no worries about time at the least. You know, your friends were following us, right? Naruto said, then questioned with a smirk, and Raven nodded her head while munching on the popcorn slowly. BB wanted to spy on my first date. Starfire's worried you're a villain. And Cyborg came to stop BB but wants to help Star. Raven said simply, and Naruto chuckled while leaning back in his seat. I would love to have had you around on my information retrieval missions, Kara-chan. Naruto said with a smirk, and Raven shrugged her shoulders before looking at him strangely. Speaking of friends, you mentioned Jinx earlier, she said, and Naruto nodded his head to her. Are you two friends then? Raven asked with a raised brow, and Naruto rolled his eyes. More like roommates, same with Mammoth, Gizmo, and some of the other Hive kids, Naruto said, and Raven blinked before she saw him snicker. In the Hive they used to call me the Anti-Robin. Now that I think about it, Kara-chan. Naruto then said, and Raven rolled her eyes, but judging by the way he looked last night she could see why they would call him that. You still hang out with the Hive? I thought you weren't a criminal, Raven stated, and Naruto shrugged his shoulders. They're my friends, I won't abandon them just because they like to actively commit felonies on a daily basis. Besides, I'm more of a security advisor, I even got them to lay off on Birdbrain's birthday, Naruto said, then admitted, and Raven was slightly surprised he did that for Robin of all people. I guess I should thank you for that, Raven said, and Naruto waved it off. No need, but let's make it a rule, Kara-chan, when we go out, we don't talk shop. And by shop I mean we leave our work-related business out of the conversation unless one of us brings it up, Naruto offered, and Raven nodded her head. She could live with that agreement, it would make speaking with him less tense at least. Alright, the movie's starting, Kara-chan, we'll talk more later, Naruto offered, and Raven nodded while munching on another piece of popcorn. Meanwhile, a couple rows behind the two, Sai, BB, and Star were all looking towards the two. Dude, why couldn't we get closer to them? BB complained lowly, and Sai frowned towards his green friend. Raven can sense auras or something like that, and Naruto admitted to having ninja training. Ninja are always aware of their surroundings, man, Sai said lowly as well, and Star simply watched the two before shushing her two male friends. Please be silent, friends, the movie of viewing is starting and I wish Node to be thrown out. Also, we need only watch for now, surely they will be silent and watching as well. We need only make sure he does nothing to harm friend Raven, Star said quietly, and BB and Sai nodded while sitting back and watching the two. Above them, the entire silent figure dressed in black resided behind a vent cover and looked down on Raven and Naruto, also on Sai, BB, and Star, and shook its head. The figure then pointed his pointer and middle fingers down towards Raven and Naruto while placing his other hand over his ear. As he did, blue grooves formed over the tips of his pointer and middle fingers on his right hand and on the palm of his left, allowing him to use them like a directional microphone and listen in on their conversation if they had another one. Later, Sai, BB, and Star all sat watching as the movie ended. Both Sai and BB had to admit that following Raven wasn't so bad thanks to the movie. However, they then noticed Naruto and Raven getting up and all ducked down. Above them, the black-clad figure narrowed his masked eyes on the two while keeping his fingers pointed towards them. So what now, Kara-chan? Naruto questioned, and the figure raised a brow at the nickname for the girl. Want to go talk at the cafe? Raven ventured, and Naruto nodded his head. Your friends are still following us, the blonde then said, and the black-clad figure smirked while Raven groaned in annoyance. I don't really care, I'll expose them later. For now they haven't been bugging me, so I'll leave them be, Raven said, and the black-clad figure turned his microphone off, then crawled out of the vents to follow the two. Back in the theater, as Raven and Naruto left, BB, Sai, and Star all followed after them, trying to be sneaky, but both Naruto and Raven noticed them. I swear, Kara-chan, your friends are the most annoying kids I've ever had the displeasure of being followed by, Naruto grumbled, and Raven gave a slight smirk. What other kids have ever followed you? She quipped, and Naruto smirked. There was the grandson of my village leader and his two friends, Naruto offered, and Raven raised a brow before rolling her eyes. You? Naruto asked, and Raven grimaced before slumping. I wasn't well liked back home, she said simply, and Naruto reached out and patted her on the shoulder. I know that feeling. Sucks, huh? Naruto commented, and Raven nodded her head to the blonde in agreement. The two were in an amiable silence afterwards, with Naruto trying not to turn his head to glare at Sai, BB, or Star when he suddenly felt like someone else was watching him for some reason. Kara-chan. Is it just me, or does it feel like we're being watched? Naruto questioned, and Raven gave him a look. My friends are following us, remember? She stated, and Naruto frowned. Not them, they don't put me on edge, someone else is following us. Naruto stated, and Raven frowned before feeling out and frowning. Two of them. She stated, and Naruto frowned darkly. I kind of forgot to bring my surveillance stuff, Kara-chan. Got anything? Naruto questioned, and Raven closed her eyes and frowned. One of them is non-hostile for certain, but I'm having trouble reading anything from the other one. I don't like this, Raven stated, and Naruto nodded his head before checking his jacket and pulled a scroll from one of the pouches on the front. Okay, I've got a couple ninja tools with me, but that's about it, Naruto said before pushing the scroll back down into the pouch discreetly, and Raven nodded. I've got my powers, wait or attack now? Raven questioned, and Naruto frowned to himself. The old him would have wanted to attack, but that would be foolish as they didn't know what the intentions of whomever was following them was. We wait. Let's see what cards our mysterious trackers have up their sleeves, Naruto said while still walking, and Raven nodded as they then turned into the cafe, and Naruto noted her friends were still following them. Not very good at stealth, are they? Naruto questioned, and Raven gave him a dry look. We normally don't need to use deception and stealth like ninja do, Naruto, she stated, and the blonde former nin shrugged his shoulders in response. The two then walked over to a table, Raven ordering her usual, while Naruto got green tea, and both noted one of the unknown pursuers was stationed at a window near the roof. The other seemed to have vanished entirely. Their three known pursuers, Sai, BB, and Star, were currently at another table and trying, but failing to hide behind a menu. So, anything on your mind, Kara-chan? Naruto questioned, and Raven nodded. I was actually wondering about that mask, those rings, and that cloak you had with you last night, she said with a curious tone, and Naruto grinned in response. The mask and cloak belong to a man named Uchiha Madara, Sasuke's ancestor from 80 years in the past if I'm not mistaken, Naruto said while rubbing his chin, and Raven blinked. And he's still alive? The girl questioned, and Naruto grimaced at that part. Well, no. Not anymore, Naruto admitted, and Raven noticed how odd he was acting, seeing as he wasn't being witty or playful. Then what about the rings? Raven asked. She could tell he didn't want to talk about how this Madara guy was dead, though Raven had a few ideas. The rings are special in that they were once worn by the 10 most dangerous ninja where I'm from. The group was formerly known as the Red Dawn Organization, or simply the Akatsuki. Naruto explained before their tea was brought to them, and both he and Raven took a quick sip. So, you were a ninja before coming to Jump City, right? Raven questioned, and Naruto nodded his head to her. What was it like? Raven asked, and Naruto placed his tea down and cupped his chin in thought, wondering how to explain to her. Well, at first when I went through the academy, I always thought if I was a ninja, no one would disrespect me or belittle me anymore, Naruto admitted, and Raven could guess why from his description of his past. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, Naruto then said softly while leaning back, and Raven blinked. How so? She asked, and Naruto flinched while looking down. No matter what I did, no matter how strong I got, everyone always called me a weakling or a loser. No matter how many times I saved someone with a brilliant idea, or when I learned something no one my age should, they would always just call me an idiot, a dope, or a baka. Then, when I thought someone actually loved me, well, you know, Naruto said while looking to the side, and Raven tried to think of something to say, one of her emotions saying, awkward, and she couldn't help but agree. I really shouldn't have asked, he seems depressed now. She thought, then was surprised when he let out a light chuckle. But that's all history now. I have friends who like and trust me, and I think I'm starting to fall for a girl with eyes that are too cute, Naruto then said with a smile, and Raven blushed while seeming to shrink into her hoodie. And my eyes aren't that special, she said, and Naruto leaned forward with another smile on his face. I've seen jade, amber, ruby, diamond, sapphire, onyx, and even ivory-colored eyes before, Kara-chan, but I like your rare amethyst eyes the most," he said, and saw the girl blush once more while fiddling with her mug. "Thanks," she offered, and Naruto raised a brow. "Is it me, or does she channel Hinata when she's embarrassed?" Naruto wondered to himself while Raven took a deep breath and then calmed herself down. "And Naruto, could you possibly tell me something about your past?" Raven questioned, and Naruto leaned back, taking a sip from his tea once more. "Like?" he asked, and Raven noted the titans around the room and inwardly twitched and promised to send at least Sai and Star to a nightmare world. BB at least knew she could take care of herself and wasn't doubting her in any way. It was sad to realize he was the one who trusted her judgment the most. "Well, could you tell me about your mother?" Raven questioned, and saw a look on Naruto's face, and she grimaced. "I'm sorry, I forgot about that," she offered, and Naruto waved it off while leaning back. "Nah, it's alright, Kara-chan. My mom." Naruto started, then stopped to collect his thoughts and gave a small true smile in remembrance. "My mom, her name was Uzumaki Kushina. She was a beautiful woman with a kind heart. She always made me feel special, like I was the most important person in the world. Whenever I was with Mom, she'd always say for me not to start fights, to make friends so she wouldn't have to worry about me. I guess I still start fights, but I do make friends now," Naruto said, then mused with a slight smile on his face, and Raven blinked several times. "Wow! Do you have a picture?" Raven asked, and Naruto nodded. Reaching into a pocket, he fished out his wallet, then flipped it open to show his mom holding him in a hug when he was still only 5. "She really looks like Starfire, an older Starfire at least," Raven mused, while Naruto then pulled his wallet back to have a final look at his mom before putting it back into his pocket. "Well, what about your mom, Kara-chan?" Naruto asked, and Raven flinched before looking down into her tea as old wounds started to surface. "My mom, her name was Arella Roth. She let some monks take care of me because of my powers. I didn't get to see her often, she was always keeping away so I wouldn't lose focus, but," Raven explained, and Naruto flinched while mentally kicking himself. "Sorry, Kara-chan," he offered, and Raven gave a slight smile. "It's alright, I know it's uncomfortable for you to talk about your mom as well," she offered, and Naruto nodded her head, and Raven suddenly had an idea. "Let's leave our fathers out of this conversation entirely," she offered while mentally wishing her father would rot in hell, and Naruto remembered the QB so quickly agreed. "How about we try something else we both like?" Raven offered, and Naruto smirked. "Books?" he offered, and Raven smiled for once, fully, and Naruto grinned inwardly. "She's much prettier when she smiles," he noted idly while Raven asked if he had any good ones on legends and the like. Naruto grinned at this and mentioned having a few on his land's legends, as well as stories, which Raven got into. Meanwhile, Cyborg was listening intently as well as Naruto explained his past as a ninja. "Dude really doesn't seem to be a villain if all he's talking about is books," Cyborg murmured to himself while BB was trying to listen in by pointing his ear towards where the two were and failing miserably. "Dude, I can't hear anything," BB complained, and Sai grimaced while grasping an ear, then glared at the little green dude with a frown. "Quiet, BB, I won't be able to listen in on them if you talk too much," Sai said in a harsh whisper, and BB pouted while crossing his arms. "Friend Beast Boy, why is it you wish to listen to the conversation between friend Raven and her own friend?" Starfire questioned, and BB scratched the back of his head with a nervous grin on his face. Never mind," BB said quickly, and Sai smirked while Naruto was getting to the part of his story where he met with the androgynous boy, Haku. "Well, I can say one thing, Raven's friend is thus far just that, Raven's friend. He likes books, has some emotional baggage with his past, and even seems to have a few hidden secrets like Ray. Hell, the only difference between them besides blonde hair and is that he can cut loose and enjoy life when he wants to," Sai said thoughtfully while rubbing his chin, and BB gawked. "Boring! Why can't Raven have any interesting friends, like maybe a cool super ninja or something like Red X?" BB demanded, then nearly shouted but somehow managed to keep himself down while Sai rolled his eyes. He idly wondered why Beast Boy's imagination was so overactive but decided he didn't care. Above them at the window a familiar figure in black was also listening in, and couldn't help but smile upon realizing it looked like Raven had found a friend. However, he narrowed his eyes wondering what was going on with him, when he saw a frown on the blonde's face before looking around. "Something wrong, Naruto?" Raven questioned, and Naruto looked around the room with a frown on his face and a bad feeling in his gut. "Someone's in the room, and whomever it is they're starting to annoy and creep me out," Naruto stated simply while looking around and couldn't seem to spot anything out of the ordinary, at least ordinary with this world. "That hard to ignore?" Raven quipped, and Naruto slowly nodded his head while Raven concentrated. Then her eyes bolted open as a flash of a familiar half-black and half-copper mask seemed to flash before her vision for a single second. "We need to go, now," she said lowly but with an urgent edge to her tone, and Naruto nodded his head and both got up. "Where?" Naruto questioned, and Raven looked all around before frowning. "Can't tell, too many people around," she said simply, and Naruto started to tilt his eyes all around the room for a while with a frown obvious on his face. "Whoever it is, I can't feel them out at all, not one of the ninja after me, but I can still tell that someone's following us," Naruto stated, and Raven raised a brow for only a second before deciding she didn't want to know how he felt people out of a large crowd. "Whoever it is also doesn't have any form of aura I can trace, so unless we're dealing with a robot or a zombie, I don't know what it is," Raven stated while walking quickly beside of Naruto, who nodded his head, having fought zombies before at least, though that was a story for another day. "He's still following us, isn't he?" Naruto asked as they turned down an alley, and Raven nodded her head. "Why hasn't he attacked yet?" Naruto questioned, and Raven frowned to herself. "I don't know, and I really don't like it. None of our usual rogues are this patient, nor are any of them this stealthy," Raven said, and Naruto resisted the urge to laugh, as he knew just how true that was from living with just a couple of them. However, he dismissed those thoughts as he and Raven then turned down another alley and finally into an old construction site. "All right, we know you're following us, so just come out already," Naruto called out, and Raven gave him a look. "Gets him out faster than trying to find him. He knows we know he's around, so he'll either abandon stealth or just leave. Either way, it gets rid of him or allows us to deal with him in a more proactive manner," Naruto explained, and Raven blinked before nodding her head, then felt a cold shiver go up her spine until she heard BB, Sai, and Star all fall out behind them. "Dudes, I didn't have anything to do with this. It was all their idea," BB called out while pointing to Sai and Star, Cyborg gaping while Starfire looked hurt. "Us? You're the one who came out to spy on them," Cyborg shouted, and would have continued had black fields not covered all their mouths. "Shut up, he didn't mean any of you," Raven said in a low monotone while looking around and saw a shadow leaning against one of the beams ahead of them, veiled completely in the shadows. And to think I thought I could elude detection for a little while longer," came a voice that made Raven's heart nearly stop and her eyes widen while taking a step back in fear. The shadow then got up from leaning and turned towards the group, his arms folded behind his back while looking towards them with a single gray eye piercing through the darkness around him. "Kara-chan, you okay?" Naruto questioned, and Raven looked to see him looking towards the figure with a serious frown and nary a hint of fear on his face. Titans, it's been quite some time, and you have a new little friend with you as well," the cold, monotonous voice called out while a figure walked out of the shadows, and Raven's breath hitched in her throat. Starfire gasped, Sai gawked, and BB surprisingly snarled in the direction of the man. The man looked to be around 6.5 feet at the very least, with an obvious muscular build, and a single cold gray eye visible. He wore an all-black suit of what looked like the same material used in the X-suit, with a gray band around his waist and both his elbows, a gray bandolier around his upper torso, a gray utility belt around his waist made of pouches rather than the plates the X-suit and Robin used, his hands covered by gray gloves. Armor was placed onto his suit as well, however, over each bicep, both forearms, thighs, knees, and shins. His shoulders were covered by the same form of apparatus as Starfire's, only his had studs over it, with armor placed onto his boots, over his toes, heels, and the soles of the thick combat boots. Last was his mask, A strange mask made from solid steel that was black on the right half, copper on the left half with a single eye hole with a strange black mark around the eye that curled upwards at the side of his eye, pads placed over each of his ears while black steel covered the back of his head and neck from view. "Hello Titans, remember me?" the man questioned in that same chilling monotone that made Naruto shiver with a combination of fear and anger. He knew that tone of voice from only one person after all. "Who are you?" Naruto questioned while taking a crouched stance, and the man looked at him as if disinterested for a few moments. "I am Slade." The man, now known as Slade, said simply, and Naruto shivered ever so slightly. He'd heard about this maniac while he was in the hive from the Troika. He knew his type from his days as a ninja, however. "No way! You can't be Slade! He fell into a pit of molten lava! No one could have survived that!" Cyborg called out, and Naruto had to nod his head in agreement. He didn't know anyone thus far, at least, as he'd certainly never try. "Per Cyborg, still thinking in rudimentary two-dimensional ways, I see," Slade commented, and Sai slammed his fists together, the hollow rings he was wearing turning off to reveal the normal Cyborg as he pointed his sonic cannon towards the man. BB threw his disguise off at that and crouched down quickly. Starfire powered up a couple starbolts, and Raven began to gather obsidian energy at her fingertips. "Let's just see if you can match up to the real Slade then. Teen Titans, go!" Sai called out as he and the rest of the Titans lunged forward, Naruto muttering under his breath as he then lunged forward after them, holding his hat down as he did. Behind them all, and still unseen, the black-clad figure jumped into the building as well. Sai was the first to attack, lashing out with a quick right hook towards Slade with his sonic cannon. The man easily dodged, however, and then spun on his heel, sending the titanium teen flying back into a beam. "Still as rash as ever, I see," Slade said coldly before holding his gauntlets up as several starbolts came his way from Starfire. "This should be amusing," he said coldly while crouching down, then jumped up and grabbed Starfire by her throat before slamming her into the ground. "Azarath, Metrian, Synthos!" Raven called out while grabbing Slade, then slamming the man into a beam, then another before throwing him into the ground. "Remind me not to get on your bad side," Naruto said mostly to himself, and Raven actually smirked, till Naruto pushed her to the ground and ducked as an exploding disc nearly took their heads off. "You shouldn't allow yourself to become too distracted, my dear," Slade said coldly, then grunted as BB in the form of an elephant rammed into him. The man narrowed his single eye, however, and quickly flipped onto BB's back, then used a device to shock the green teen, knocking him out cold while Slade kicked off of his back and into a stance on the ground. "Alright, this fucker's all mine now," Naruto said, and before Raven could protest, the blonde had already moved forward and jumped into a double kick to Slade's chest, sending him onto his back while Naruto rolled into a crouch. "Perhaps you're not just a friend of Raven's after all," Slade mused, and Naruto smirked despite himself. "Alright, candy corn face, catch me if you can," Naruto challenged before jumping up and then making his way up towards the top of the still under construction building. Slade narrowed his cold gray eye at this before chuckling as he gave pursuit of the blonde, following him to the very top where Naruto pulled his scroll out of his flak jacket and then held it in both hands with them in a rammed seal. "What's this then?" Slade questioned, and Naruto grinned as he then threw the scroll open and placed a glowing hand onto it, a plume of smoke appearing as a gray utility belt appeared. His had 4 kunai cases on the front, 2 at the front of each hip, with 5 pouches beside and behind his hips all around the belt. "Now that I've got a few weapons, let's start, candy corn face," Naruto said while placing the belt around his waist, then pulling a kunai from it and holding it before himself with a smirk on his lips. Slade merely hummed at the blonde's words before then reaching into his own utility belt and producing a cylinder which then stretched to form into a staff. "What is with you people and overly simplifying even the most basic of goddamned weapons?" Naruto questioned, slightly annoyed, and heard a light chuckle from Slade in response. "I believe you wanted to fight me just a second ago," Slade stated while crouching into a stance, and Naruto quickly pulled a chain from one of his own pouches and attached it to his kunai, then pulled a second kunai out and attached it to the end of the chain and held it by the chain. "Yeah, and now let's see what you got," Naruto called out before jumping into the air and spinning the chain, then threw it at Slade, who used his staff to catch it and pulled the blonde down. Shinobi Rule Number 3: Deception is key to even the easiest mission. Naruto thought with a smirk, inwardly thinking Irika, as he then moved in the air to kick Slade in the face, then pulled on his own end of the chain, pulling Slade's upper torso forward and making him slam into the ground face first while dropping his staff. I should have seen that coming. Slade grunted out before flipping to his feet only to find Naruto swinging his kunai down at him and blocked with one of his gauntlets. So you don't play to knock someone out, huh? Slade quipped and saw a nasty look cross over Naruto's face. I'm no killer if that's what you mean, candy corn face, Naruto said with a deadly tone before kicking Slade in the chest, knocking him back long enough for the blonde to spin his chain once more and then spin it into Slade's mask, knocking him to the side where he quickly righted himself. Come now, boy, I see it in your eyes, you've stained your hands with blood more than once, Slade stated coldly, and Naruto snarled before lunging at the man once more, jumping into a spinning roundhouse kick. Below, the Titans were slowly getting back to their feet only to roll out of the way as several blasts came at them. Oh shit, it's the Slade drones! Sai called out as several figures dropped to the ground below and aimed strange weapons on them. Each of these things had a black mask with a copper spot in the center and white reflective eyes. Their suits were full black, with a metallic collar around their necks, metallic gauntlets, and a metallic utility belt around each of their waists. They had metal shin guards with 2 metal rings around each of their biceps and thighs, and black boots with steel along the soles alone. Dude! Does this mean Slade really is back? BB questioned while the Slade bots crept towards them from the darkness, dropping down from the many beams, and Sai grit his teeth and aimed his sonic cannon. It doesn't matter if he is, or if he isn't, these things are a real threat at the moment, Sai called out, then lunged into the robots, pulling his cannon back, then slammed it into the ground before the robots, scattering them back while Raven frowned and looked upwards. Be safe, Naruto, she whispered, then formed her ebony energy around her hands. Azarath, Metrian, Zinthos, she called out while swiping her hands, forming an ebony blade and cutting through several of the drones. Meanwhile, Starfire was tossing starbolts into the drones when she saw a shadowed figure dropkick one, then spin on his heel and slam the back of his heel into another. Who are you? Starfire questioned, and the person looked at her with a pair of narrow-masked eyes. You know who I am. With that simple message, the person flipped back onto a robot, then slammed his foot into its head before seeming to vanish as the robot exploded, leaving a very confused Starfire to wonder what had just happened and who that person was. However, she quickly returned to the battle at hand as the drones fired on her once more. Frowning, the alien princess's eyes began to glow as she let out a battle cry and attacked the minions of Slade. Back with Naruto. Naruto panted while looking up from his spot towards Slade. The man had a cut or two in his suit, and his armor and mask had cracks forming. But the bastard just didn't seem to tire or wear out even a slight bit. Gritting his teeth in frustration, Naruto flipped back to his feet with his twin kunai with chain in hand and took a quick stance. Honestly, boy, stop hiding that bloodlust. You have to hold back your own urge to just tear my head off. I can see it in your every move, Slade commented darkly while looking down at the blonde, who snarled while clenching his fists tightly. Would you just shut the fucking hell up already? Naruto screamed before lunging at Slade once more with a roar, spinning into a roundhouse kick, then slamming his fist into Slade's jaw. Anger, yes, you know, true rage, but let's see just how far you can give into it, Slade commented darkly, and Naruto growled angrily once more before rushing forward, slamming his fist into Slade's mask only for the man to flip him over his shoulder. You should learn to always watch for your enemies to exploit your weaknesses, you know, Slade commented while turning to the boy, and Naruto grit his teeth before then quickly wrapping his kunai with chain around his waist, then lunged at Slade, throwing a fist at the man, which Slade deftly dodged, then slammed a fist into the blonde boy's gut. Alright, no more Mr. Nice Ninja, Naruto said darkly while pulling his hat off and placed it into his belt. Simultaneously, the blonde-haired boy pulled out several explosive notes. That's it, show me what your true power is, Slade said darkly while taking a stance, and Naruto lunged at the man, slamming a fist into his face while also deftly dodging the counter-strike, maneuvering in and out of the man's attacks just by the skin of his teeth as he soon flipped back and away from Slade. Tiring out already? Slade commented, and Naruto smirked before looking at his work, an explosive note on every piece of the man's armor. No. But I do have one last word, Naruto said while standing up and then retrieving his hat from his belt. Boom! With that, Slade was pelted with several explosions over his armor before Naruto then jumped into a roundhouse kick and knocked Slade back and down to the ground 30 stories below. Tilting an ear to listen, he actually smirked when he heard the man hit the ground with a loud crash. Ouch, bet he feels that in the morning, Naruto commented before then rushing back down to see how the Titans were doing below. He instantly noticed the several dozen drones all over the place, with the Titans starting to pick them down. However, upon flipping to the ground, he saw Slade was somehow slowly getting back to his feet and growled, "Oh, come on! Don't you ever just stay down?" The blonde demanded before lunging forward, grabbing Slade by the front of his collar, then slammed the back of the man's his head into a steel beam. "All right now, buddy, I've had about enough of this shit as I can take, so just who the hell are you?" Naruto demanded while reaching forward and pulling the front of Slade's mask off, the Titans coming to see what was revealed as well. "It's a robot," Cyborg said with disbelief while beyond Slade's mask was what looked like a robot with a TV screen inside its head. "Geez, Giz would love this, still pisses me off to no end though," Naruto mumbled under his breath, then took a step back as the screen in the robot's head crackled to life. Now on the screen was a shadowed figure with only her right eye exposed. "Hello, Titans. It's nice to finally meet the ones who murdered my father." The voice was young, it was feminine, and it was calm, cool, and collected. Basically, it sounded like a young and somehow female Slade's voice to all those present. "What the hell are you talking about? We've never killed anyone," Sai stated, and the eye narrowed on screen. "Oh? Weren't you the one who said he fell into a pit of lava not too long ago?" the girl commented, and Cyborg's eyes widened while the other Titans looked to the screen in shock. "Ah, now you seem to get it," the girl commented, and Naruto frowned. "Why the hell did you send this bucket of bolts down here?" he questioned with an edge to his tone, and the girl on screen chuckled darkly. "Quite simple really, Mr. Uzumaki. I wanted to see if my father's files on the Titans were still accurate, while also assessing the danger you yourself may pose to my future plans," the girl explained, and the Titans instantly knew that this was Slade's daughter all right. "Got a name, Slade?" Cyborg mocked, and the girl nodded her head. "From now on, Titans, you may call me Ravager." Ravager seemed to give a bow, and Naruto couldn't help a slight shiver as the name somehow made him think of Karen. What happened to her anyways? "Well then, Ravager, what the hell are you doing this for?" Raven demanded, and saw Ravager's single gray eye narrow on her angrily. "You and your friends took my only family from me. I'll make sure all of you pay, and pay dearly for it," Ravager stated darkly, and Naruto frowned. "But until next we meet, Titans, I leave you a little gift." With that, a 020 appeared on the screen and began to count down. "I hate it when they do that," Naruto said before rushing out of the area, Cyborg and the others quickly following and jumping down as the Slade bot in the construction site went off, causing the building to fall in on itself, while the 5 teens watched. "I am so not paying for that," Naruto said, and got looks from the Titans before nodding their heads in agreement with him on not paying for the damages to the still only quarter-finished building. Titan's Tower later. Raven and the other Titans all made it back to the tower with Naruto there to say goodnight to his date. Raven and Naruto were up front at the moment, Raven's friends behind them as she walked up to the door, and then turned to face Naruto with an apologetic expression on her face. "Sorry about the date going bad, I was actually having fun before that robot showed up to spoil it," Raven said while turning to the blonde only to see a grin form on Naruto's face. "Are you kidding me? Even with the freaky robot I had a blast, Kara-chan," Naruto said with his arms crossed behind his head, and Raven managed a tiny smile before they then noticed Sai, Star, and BB were all still watching them. "Seeing as the peanut gallery is still around, I should probably head on home myself, Kara-chan. See you again for tea tomorrow though," Naruto said while giving a hug to Raven, who blushed while attempting to reciprocate without embarrassing herself too much. Once that was done, Naruto turned around, waved to Sai, BB and Star, then walked off, seeming to vanish into the shadows surrounding the tower. "How did he do that?" Cyborg questioned while scratching his head, and BB plainly gawked while thinking, "Ninja!" in his head for the millionth time. Seeing the two as they were, Raven couldn't help it as she smirked. It seemed he truly was a maverick showstopper, after all. "Raven, guys, where have you all been? It's nearly midnight, and we have to be ready for anything," Robin questioned, then stated after opening the door to the tower, and Cyborg gave a long groaning sigh. "Long story, man. Real long. I'll explain it all in the morning," he stated while walking into the building with Star and BB tagging along behind him with tired expressions on their faces. Robin merely blinked before looking to Raven, who frowned slightly while crossing her arms. "They followed me on my date for one thing or another," she stated with an annoyed tone, and Robin frowned while shaking his head. "I'll get on their cases about your privacy tomorrow, Ray. Head on to bed and get some sleep. Something tells me you've earned it," Robin then said, and Raven yawned before walking into the tower herself and heading for the elevator, while Robin let out a relieved breath and picked up a briefcase beside the door. The briefcase looked simple enough, being silver with Robin's symbol placed on top of it. The boy wonder then walked up the steps and soon reached the level of the tower where his room was located. Walking to his room, the boy wonder entered and then walked over to have a seat and smirked as he opened up the case. Within was a pair of black gloves with metal plates at the back of each fist, gunmetal gray wrist protecting forearm guards located at the back of the case side by side, a pair of black boots with steel soles and toes like his normal ones, a domino mask in a more V-like shape, a gray utility belt like Slade's but with a strange buckle at the front that looked like an energy core of some form, and finally a solid black suit made of the same material as Red X's suit but with a blue Firebird symbol on the front. "Sorry to invade your privacy and your love life, Ray, but I can't let my team be endangered by anything. But now at least I know to at least give you some more space with Naruto." Robin mused, then smirked as he looked at the suit within the case for a few more moments. "And I've got to admit, the field test for my new Nightwing uniform went better than I ever expected," Robin said before he then closed the case. "So what did you think of that boy Wintergreen?" Ravager questioned of her butler, and the man rubbed his chin. "As you said, he is quite skilled, Miss Rose, but I wonder if he could actually take over for your father. He seems quite loyal to his friends." Wintergreen wondered, and Ravager merely waved a hand at that with a frown on her face. "Perhaps, but what of the Titans? Have they changed since last you saw them?" Ravager mused, then questioned, and Wintergreen shook his head. Then perhaps I don't need to focus on the Titans. This Uzumaki boy intrigues me to no end. His skills, his apparent powers, and his knowledge all combine to make him something akin to a force of nature." Ravager mused while slowly walking over to the back of the room, Wintergreen at her side. The two walked over to a table bathed in light. On the table lay none other than Blackfire strapped down, her breathing steady and calm, as she seemed almost asleep. "Have you kept her properly drugged, Wintergreen? We don't need her waking up yet after all," Ravager questioned, and her butler gave a simple stiff nod before replying. "We are lucky she revealed some of her faults when she fought with Starfire and Red X, Miss Rose, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to take precautions to ensure her health during her stay with us," Wintergreen said, and Ravager nodded her own head in agreement, thankful for the man's quick thinking. Reaching down, Ravager then pulled the gem from the collar Blackfire wore and chuckled lightly. "To think this simple thing is what stores all her power," she mused, looking at the gem before then tucking it into the girl's belt. She wouldn't steal it from her, though it seemed intriguing it would hamper her future plans to have her or Red X come and try and take it back from her. "Do you have the modified version ready yet, Wintergreen?" Ravager then questioned, and the butler nodded his head once more while pulling a similar jewel, only red as blood, from his pocket and handing it to her. "This version shall overload her, Miss Rose. She will go on a rampage as soon as she awakens, destroying anyone and anything that stands in her way. Add on to that this new version will also at least triple her combat abilities, and she should be more than a match for Red X even at his best," Wintergreen said simply while Ravager smirked, then placed the jewel onto the collar-like device in place of the old one, and saw Blackfire grimace in her sleep. "She'll be a regular Black Inferno then," Ravager quipped with a light chuckle while Wintergreen nodded his head. "Shall I have her placed to attack those Hive Children's HQ then, Miss Rose?" Wintergreen questioned, and Ravager chuckled while looking down at the girl as a smirk made its way to her pale lips. No, we'll wait until the Titans are gone. Then we'll have her attack the city to lure out the fox to see if he's as dangerous as he seems. After all, Wintergreen, pawns are more useful to see what your enemy will do next, not to attack with directly, Ravager stated while looking at Blackfire with a dark glint in her dark gray gaze. Hive HQ. It has been a couple weeks after Naruto's first date with Raven. The two had been on a couple more, thankfully without the spies, and Naruto and Raven were able to share a little more with one another. Currently they've been on about 4 dates in the past few weeks, with them sometimes bumping into one another at the bookstore. Once the Hive gang found out Mammoth and Gizmo tried to squeeze whom it was out of him. He also seemed to find Jinx more annoyed than she normally was around the base, usually saying something about oblivious blondes. At the moment, however, Naruto was asleep, dreaming dreams as he normally does, mostly of him kicking the Konoha nin's asses. However, when the first few beams of sunlight filtered through his window shades and into his eyes, the blonde ex-shinobi groaned. Naruto rolled out of bed once more and groaned as he sat up, mumbling about not being a morning person for what felt like the millionth time. Cracking his neck, Naruto then performed his morning rituals and then walked out of his room with one eye open and more than half asleep. However, when a shadow then formed out of the floor and turned into Raven, his eyes shot straight open and he looked around, before quickly pulling her into his room. "What are you doing here, Kara-chan? Have you forgotten my friends are your enemies?" Naruto questioned lowly, and Raven rolled her eyes towards the worried blonde. "1. I can take care of myself. 2. I needed your help and guess the Hive don't wake up this early," Raven stated, and Naruto blinked before scratching his head. "Actually, Kara-chan, they wake up earlier than me," Naruto said, and Raven was slightly surprised by this. "Oh. Well, anyways, I need you to do me a tiny favor," Raven said, and Naruto gave her a look. Raven didn't ask for tiny favors as far as he knew, no, the only kind of favors she asked for were the ones that could get a person mauled. "What?" he asked suspiciously, and Raven breathed out a sigh. "Me and the others are heading out into the ocean. I told Robin that I'd try and find someone to watch the tower. I may have mentioned that you have ninja contacts who could do the job for us," Raven explained, and Naruto frowned towards his girlfriend of 3 weeks with a look. "You want me, a known thief, to watch the city?" he asked, and Raven nodded her head, then pulled her hood down and gave him a look. Her eyes somehow seemed even brighter as she did, and Naruto tried to block the look with his arms. "Ah shit, Kara-chan! You and those damn eyes!" he said while Raven smirked towards the blonde who hung his head and gave her an amused glare. "You're going to be the death of me, Kara-chan, I swear," he stated while shaking his head, and Raven chuckled. "Really, I thought the great prince of thieves wasn't afraid of death," she quipped, and then found Naruto pulling her close to him, her face turning crimson as he did so, and then leaned down to smile at her. "Now did I say it was going to be a bad way to die?" he quipped with a smirk, and Raven lightly swatted him on the arm, making him chuckle. "So what's got you kids heading off to sea?" Naruto questioned, and Raven looked around before sighing. "Brother Blood is trying to build another Hive school. Only this one is being put underwater for some reason. We're going out there to take him down, or so Robin says." Raven explains and sees a frown form on Naruto's face, which then splits into a wide, wicked grin. "Please beat the hell out of him for me, Kara-chan. I really don't like that bastard. Also, he had a window into the girls' locker room in the old school," Naruto said, then mused and saw Raven twitch before frowning. "I'll make sure he feels the full fury of myself, and every female who he's spied on," she said, and Naruto chuckled before being surprised, yet not at all annoyed, when Raven reached up to hug him around the neck. "Also, thank you, Naruto," she said, and then gave him a chaste kiss on the cheek before vanishing into the shadows. "My girlfriend is as shy as I am outgoing. I guess opposites really do attract," Naruto said while shaking his head and giving a chuckle. "Oh well, might as well go and get some chow before I head out. Wonder if the X suit is finished," Naruto said, then wondered aloud as he walked out of his room and down the halls until he walked into Gizmo's workshop. "Hey Giz," he said, and the tiny terror jumped out of his seat, then turned to the blonde with a snarl. "Stop that! he shouted, and Naruto rolled his eyes. Is the X-suit ready? He asked, and Gizmo blinked before grinning and nodding his head enthusiastically. Pulling a briefcase from under his desk, he sat it down and opened it to reveal the helmet. It's ready all right. I went with a full-on overhaul and took the suit as far as I could, Gizmo said while Naruto picked up the helmet and noted that it was made from a strange material now, with the skull more or less the same at least. I renovated the helmet big time. I took out a lot of crap and then redesigned it to have most of the old features while making them all smaller, Gizmo said proudly while Naruto messed with the helmet, trying to get a feel for where everything was on it. What about the rest of the suit? Naruto questioned while putting the battery back into the helmet and then fingering the helm for a bit, finding buttons on a few points of the helmet, one at the lower jaw, one at each ear, one at each temple. The suit is now made of a special lightweight bulletproof and fireproof material while being insulated for electrical shocks, and of course it protects against rain and other waters from getting into it as well. It also has a special coating that dampens body heat so you're practically invisible when you're using stealth mode. However, anyone with sonar tracking will still be able to find you. I think the Tin Head Titan has this kind of rig up in his sonic cannon, Gizmo explained while Naruto nodded his head silently, still looking over the helmet as he then pressed down on the buttons at the ears, and with a popping sound he then moved the skull up to the top of the head. Inside he saw there was a mask, over where his lower face would be, that had a strange design to it. The helmet now has infrared, ultraviolet, and scope settings, but they only work with the skull brought down. It functions as a visor even though I've updated it. The mouthpiece holds a synthesizer for your voice and a rebreather just in case you ever fall into an ocean or something and need to hide. It also protects most poison gases, including Smilex in case you ever run into that clown freak the Joker, Gizmo explained while Naruto nodded his head and noticed that the skull of the mask looked somewhat robotic now. Also check these out, Gizmo then said while pulling out what looked like his old gauntlets. However, after reluctantly putting the helmet down, upon further inspection Naruto saw that these gauntlets had 3 scallops on the sides in a similar fashion to the legendary Batman, only they were retracted into the gauntlets themselves. The gauntlets were mostly black, with a ash-gray trim, the plate for the back of his hand having a jagged red X on it while a groove ran the length of the back of the forearm plate. A thick gray bangle was around the wrist, and then another was placed at mid-forearm, both having a section at the back cut off. You really need to stop playing that cyborg ninja game, Giz. You're getting them on the brain, Naruto said while looking over the gauntlets with a critical eye. Pulling it on, he then found a button and the scallops came from the sides of the gauntlets. Okay, why do I have Batman stings on my gauntlets? He questioned with a raised brow, and Gizmo snorted. Those scallops are razor sharp temp. They can cut through solid steel and deflect bullets easily. I figured you'd want something that has both defensive and offensive capabilities. Plus, those would be handy if you completely drain the suit of chakra and need a weapon to fight with, Gizmo quipped, and Naruto nodded his head before finding the way to retract the scallops and watch them fold down. The gauntlets also have the same electrical knuckle function as before for fist fighting, Gizmo then added, and Naruto nodded before placing the gauntlet down onto the ground as the tiny terror picked up one of the 2 greaves and put it onto the table. This new version were basically exactly like the old ones. These were black and reached up to cover the knee with a single plate that covered the front of his shins like before, while they had thick black straps curving around the front of the armor then wrapping around the back where another section of the armor was located for maximum protection. Around them for holding them on now, a plate looked to also be for the top of the foot with the straps coming down from it. A jagged red X placed on that plate with straps coming down to curve around his feet. These, like the old greaves, have the same electric function, primarily however they are just armor. I did however add protection up to your knees this time in case someone tried to blow your legs out from under you. They also have a special stabilizer and bracer systems in place with the gauntlets to help you land from high places without breaking your legs in the process, Gizmo explained, and Naruto actually whistled. He had to admit he was more and more impressed with Gizmo's work. Last, we have the new belt, Gizmo said as he grinned and pulled the said object out, which, like the last 2 items, looked almost exactly like the old one. This belt was ash gray, with a circular gray buckle with a tiny red X in the middle of a black field, 4 prongs extended from the buckle and latched onto the individual plates that made up the belt. A strange plate was on one side, however. It has an upward slot with a panel showing several switches. Nice, the belt looks the same as well, Naruto said with a grin, and Gizmo gave him a glare for the crack. Gizmo then reached into the belt and pulled out several straps, 2 coming out of the two from the bottom, and looked at Naruto with a smirk, seeing his confused expression. I remembered when you said it was annoying how Robin just pulled your belt off of the original suit. These were added to prevent such an occurrence from ever being repeated. They go around your hips and thighs like a military belt has. Hell, that's where I got the idea, Gizmo said, then admitted with a frown, and Naruto blinked, then rubbed the back of his neck. Thanks Giz, that'll really help, he said, and Gizmo then pulled out his shoulder guards, which also looked the same as they had before. They were designed to have straps curve around his shoulders and under his arms. The armor itself was made from a thick black flexible material that offered some extra protection. The guards themselves were black with a dark gray trim. Extra pads curving down from under them over his upper arms, where they had a pair of straps for going around his biceps. These truly are no different than the old armor, just added some nanocircuitry into them so they'll repair themselves like the rest of the armor does when you wear it. I have got to figure out how you do that at some point, Gizmo explained, then added, and Naruto shrugged his shoulders before placing all of the gear into the case and picking it up. Why do you need the suit anyways? Gizmo then asked, and Naruto smirked. I just wanted to head through town in style. After I get something to eat, of course. And with that, Naruto left a confused Gizmo in his wake as he then set off for the kitchen and some food. Upon entering the kitchen, he found Jinx sulking and looking into a glass of orange juice with a small frown and a sad look before sighing. Okay, what's wrong? Naruto asked, seeing the girl, who looked up then looked away from him. Nothing, she offered weakly, and Naruto rolled his eyes, then walked over to sit in front of her, placing the case with the new X-suit down. Nuhu, you've been moody for the past 2 weeks and snapping at everyone, Jinx. What the hell is wrong? Naruto said, then questioned, and Jinx merely looked down and anywhere but at him. Looking back 5 minutes later, she saw he still hadn't left and glared at him. I can wait here all day, Jinx, he stated, and the pink-haired girl frowned before letting out a sigh. Alright, I like this guy, she started, and Naruto held up a hand, then walked over to the fridge and got himself something to munch on. Sitting back down, he motioned for her to continue, and she gave him a slightly amused smirk. Alright, I like this guy, he's really smart, but positively clueless no matter how many signals I send him. He also recently started dating this girl. I don't even know who she is, and I already don't like her. So now I'm trying to think of what I should do, Jinx offered, and Naruto hummed in thought while leaning back in his seat. Does he love her? He asked, and Jinx bit her lip before answering. I don't really know, they've only been going out a couple weeks, but he says they have a lot in common, Jinx explained vaguely, and Naruto rubbed his chin while taking another bite out of his apple. Thinking for a few seconds, then swallowing, Naruto finally answered her. I got nothing, he said with a smirk, and Jinx nearly burst into laughter and tears at the same time. She also had to wonder why he was so dense. Alright, seeing as I'm not good with girls, Naruto started, and Jinx held back a sarcastic comment. I'd say meet this chick he's dating and talk with her and try and work something or another out. According to my old sensei Jiraiya, you girls are better at helping each other than we guys ever were, Naruto said, then frowned slightly as he realized what he had just said. Wait, my old sensei was a pervert who wrote smut for a living, what would he know? Naruto said mostly to himself, and Jinx blinked then gaped at the blonde boy. Your sensei was a perverted old ninja? Who wrote smut for a living? She demanded loudly, and Naruto nodded his, causing the girl to snicker then start laughing hysterically. Oh dear God, why didn't you tell me before? A ninja who writes smut for a living, that's priceless, she asked, then exclaimed while trying to keep from laughing too hard, and Naruto grinned sheepishly. Well, because he kind of forced me to write a perverted novel while he was training me for one, Naruto mused, and Jinx stopped laughing and looked at him strangely before a grin spread over her face. This I have got to see, she stated enthusiastically, probably expecting it to be really, really bad, and Naruto rolled his eyes. Written in Japanese, remember? he stated, and Jinx smirked before speaking in Japanese, and he blinked. Why didn't you tell me you spoke Japanese? He asked, and the girl shrugged her shoulders before grinning. I can also read and write in Japanese too. Cheshire taught me and to answer your question with one of my own. Why didn't you tell me your sensei was a lek? She offered back, and Naruto gave her a look. Because most girls would instantly assume I'm a pervert. Besides that, so is Brother Blood, he had a fucking window to the girls' locker room for Cammy's sake. The blonde said, and Jinx stopped grinning only to snarl and clench her fist tightly. I'm going to kill that man when I see him again, she called out angrily, and Naruto rolled his eyes. Finishing his apple, he then headed off to his room. Hey, wait up! I need to see this triad smut you wrote, she said with a grin, and Naruto grunted, having hoped she'd forget he ever mentioned that. Now he was going to have to find that damn book Jiraiya forced him to write all that time ago. Miss Rose, Mr. Blood has drawn the attention of the Titans as per your request, Wintergreen informed while looking to the back of a large throne. Sitting in the throne is Ravager, who then opened her single eye and smirked with one elbow on an armrest and her fist in one cheek. Then did Raven go to him as we suspected she would? She questioned, and Wintergreen nodded his head while standing behind her. It seems he is going out as Red X rather than Tempest this time, madam. At least from what our surveillance drones were able to glean when he exited the building as Red X. Are you sure you don't wish to wait for a time when he will use his real skills over that suit and its functions? Wintergreen questioned, and Ravager briefly considered it before shaking her head from side to side. No. We have seen that he tends only to use his full skills when he's behind a mask. Now will be the best time to see more of his power, Ravager said before typing rapidly on some buttons located on the armrests of her chair. As we saw last night, he held back due to the Titans being nearby and possibly exposing himself to them as Red X or Tempest, a thief in one case and a Hive member in the other, Ravager said while replaying data from the fight last night, noting he'd only needed to use his bare fists and those explosive notes to defeat the robot, which had been made to be almost as skilled as her father was in real life. True, madam. Forgive me, but I merely thought it would be prudent to wait until we could learn of his full skills, Wintergreen said with a bow of his head, and Ravager smirked towards the old man who had raised her for so long. Don't worry. We'll learn more about him soon enough, Wintergreen, she said darkly while she then typed on the armrests once more. Let's start a fire and drive the animals from their homes, she said mostly to herself while Wintergreen nodded his head, as he understood what she meant. A flashing light illuminates a dark area. A pair of glowing red eyes open as their owner roars out in fury and bursts out of her tomb. Blackfire growls angrily as her glowing red eyes glare out around her at the building she found herself in. The alien girl then suddenly grits her teeth for a second, bringing her hands to her head as pain consumes her mind. As she falls to her knees for a second, her eyes glow dims before she slams her hands into the ground, her eyes now brighter than ever. Roaring out loudly, the girl starts throwing dark bolts all over the building, blasting hole after hole out of it before looking towards the roof and firing a power beam attack upwards. Grinning almost insanely, girl then flies up through the new hole she's made while scanning around the city. As she looked around, one might have noticed the small receivers placed into her ears with a jagged black S on them. He's to your left, Blackfire. The one who attacked you is that way, the one who kept you from vengeance, a voice said, and Blackfire didn't care who it was as she growled and then flew off in the direction specified by it. Jump City rooftops. Naruto rushed across the many roofs of Jump City, a grin on his face as he flipped in the air and came down on top of a building with great ease. I hate being out in the middle of the day, but shit, this test run is going great, Naruto said to himself as he'd been testing the bracer/stabilizer system in his gauntlets and greaves all this time. Now if only I had something to test the other new features on, Naruto then mused before looking around and frowning when he saw smoke and heard sirens in the distance. Ugh, Karachan, you owe me big for this shit, Naruto said lowly, then rushed over towards the edge of the building and leaped off, landing in a roll before he rushed towards the smoke and looked down with a frown, seeing several cops behind a car firing stun weapons at a familiar alien girl. Blackfire? What the hell is she doing here? Naruto wondered, then saw Blackfire lift a car and easily before throwing it towards the cops, most of the ducking out of the way when he saw Officer Connors down there. How does that old guy get himself into all of this trouble? Naruto wondered to himself before flipping off the building to land beside of Officer Connors, the brown-haired man aiming what looked like an M4 assault carbine at him. Whoa! What's with the heavy artillery? Naruto questioned while raising his hands, and Jack grunted while firing at Blackfire, the girl protecting her head with her arms as the bullets bounced off her armor. That chick is wearing some kind of flexible body armor. When we tried stun weaponry, they didn't even ding her, Jack said simply with an annoyed look, and Naruto nodded his head slowly. Geez, old guy, where'd you get that thing? Naruto questioned while Jack then turned back to shooting at Blackfire, drawing her attention to them. Seeing her power up a dark bolt, Naruto quickly rolled out of the way while bringing Jack with him. What the hell are you doing? Her armor is too tough for your damn bullets to pierce, Naruto shouted, and Jack rolled his eyes. Actually, I was drawing her attention to us so the others can get the injured out of here, Jack said simply, and Naruto then noted the numerous cops dragging wounded officers and civilians out of the area while Blackfire was now rushing towards them. You wouldn't happen to have a missile handy, would you? Naruto questioned, and Jack grunted before firing a grenade from his M4, the grenade detonating before Blackfire and sending her flying back. No, my Stinger missile launcher is currently in my car, Jack said, and Naruto blinked then looked at him strangely, before ducking when Blackfire tossed the car at them. Both ducked down as the car then slammed through a building behind them before exploding, and Jack sighed. And that was my car, Jack grunted out while Naruto then watched as Blackfire stalked towards them once more. Someone is seriously PMSing. This is almost as bad as the time Jinx got pissed off at me for being late to visit her, Jack mused, and Naruto blinked. Almost? He asked incredulously of the man who nodded then rolled behind another car, Naruto following as Blackfire blew the car they had been behind away with her supercharged eye beams. When Jill Manx is PMSing, things blow up. When she's in a really bad mood, she starts bringing buildings down on top of you, and on her birthday, weird shit happens, yet somehow through all of that I survived by hiding under a cardboard box, Jack said then mused while Naruto made a mental note not to seriously piss off Jinx anytime soon. However, both then rolled back as Blackfire slammed her fist into the ground where they had been, breaking the road up under them and knocking Jack onto his ass. Something is seriously wrong with her, Naruto said mostly to himself, then flipped forward with a kick, knocking Blackfire back into a car. Hey, old guy. Get out of here while I deal with the pissed-off princess, Naruto called over his shoulder, and Jack grunted while getting to his feet. My name isn't old guy. It's Jack, and if you don't like that then just call me Snake, Jack called out then rolled behind a car and stealthily made his way out of the area while Naruto smirked. Finally, a snake I don't hate, Naruto quipped to himself, then turned his eyes to Blackfire as she pulled herself out of the car. Come on, Naruto said while crouching back into a stance, and the furious Blackfire rushed forward with a roar. Dodging her first right hook, Naruto slammed his elbow into her gut, only for her to spin in midair and nail him in the head, sending him flying into and through the front of a building. Ouch! That hurt more than last time, Naruto mused, then got up in time for Blackfire to ram into him, then fly through several walls and then the ceilings of the building until they came up onto the roof. She then threw him off of herself and landed on the ground, her arms hanging low, hair frazzled and seeming to make spikes at the ends, and her lips twisted into an enraged snarl. Seeing all this, Naruto narrowed his eyes and then stood up while Blackfire rushed at him, only for the teen to quickly throw her over and into the next building. Something's wrong with her. This isn't like the last time I fought with her. She's angrier and her powers are stronger somehow, Naruto said mostly to himself while a roaring Blackfire flew out of the building he tossed her into, then lunged down at him and plowed him through the building once more and into the street in front of it. I don't know if this town can take much more of this, Naruto muttered, then kicked Blackfire off of himself before flipping back to his face, inwardly marveling at the fact he hadn't been knocked out by that last attack. Narrowing his eyes as a growling and snarling Blackfire got back up, Naruto released the scallops and the electrode knuckles on his gauntlets, the X's on his greaves sparking as well. Alright, Blackfire, let's see if I can't knock you out myself, Naruto said while Blackfire rushed towards him with a punch he blocked with his gauntlet, grimacing only slightly when he feels the force behind the attack, then slams his electrified fist into the girl's gut. Blackfire grimaced in pain at this, and was sent flying back while sparks arched over her body. X was somewhat surprised when the girl sparked red for a second, then got back up and growled towards him, the jewel on her collar armor glowing. "Alright, something screwed up is going on here," Naruto said mostly to himself while Blackfire lunged forward with a roar, punching and kicking at him wildly while he blocked and evaded the strikes. Kicking the girl in the head with an electrified roundhouse sent Blackfire to the side, only for her to get up once more and growl once more. This is something like what the others said I act like in my QB state. Angry, relentless, and driven to destroy. What the hell has happened to you, Blackfire? Naruto wondered to himself while Blackfire then flew towards him, and he flipped up only to spin into a roundhouse punch to her spine that sent her straight into the ground. The girl growled yet again, however, and got back to her feet, much to the blonde's annoyance and confusion as she then lunged at him with a roundhouse, but he ducked under it, then slammed his fist into her jaw, sending her flying back. It's like her body is on autopilot or something. Everything she's doing is getting more and more violent as she goes. Naruto thought, then frowned when Blackfire got up again, then grabbed a car and then spun, throwing the vehicle at Naruto, who crouched. 1,000 blades jutsu! Naruto called out as hundreds of blades of wind surrounded him, ripping the car apart, while Blackfire growled angrily. The girl then charged her eye beams with a manic grin, and Naruto cursed before throwing his arms up to block the beam that hit him and plowed him through 2 buildings before he stopped. That chick is on power steroids, Naruto muttered while getting back to his feet and noting Kyuubi's chakra suddenly seeped into his half-melted gauntlets, repairing them easily before vanishing. I have got to figure out how Kyuubi's doing that, Naruto said to himself, then jumped out of the rubble of the wall he'd been plowed through and ran back to where Blackfire had been. Looking around he frowned, then turned on his inferred vision setting and saw a brightly glowing form flying overhead. Turning his inferred off, Naruto then teleported above Blackfire and fell down on her, plowing her down into the ground with an enormous crash while Naruto flipped out of the dust none the worse for wear. Turning around, however, he was surprised when yet again Blackfire started to get up, only he instantly noticed the jewel on her collar was sparking as if damaged. Something about that gem must be causing her to go berserk, Naruto thought while also noting the clothes that Blackfire wore over her armor were now thoroughly torn to shreds. The girl didn't seem to care as she then lunged at Naruto with a roar, throwing dark bolts at the blonde wildly. Naruto breathed out as he blocked each of the dark bolts with his gauntlets, effortlessly knocking them out of the way before taking a stance and looking at Blackfire. Not allowing her time to try another attack, Naruto lunged forward and then quickly dropped into a sweep kick. Blackfire jumped over only for Naruto to place his hands onto the ground and kick up into her gut, sending her flying high up into the air while Naruto flipped onto his feet. The alien princess managed to right herself in the air, but Naruto appeared and slammed his fists down into her head, sending her flying down into the ground. Landing, Naruto watched as Blackfire got up again, bleeding, panting, and looked more than worse for wear, and yet she was still getting up for more. I've got to put an end to this before I kill her, he said to himself before lunging forward. Swinging his arms, Blackfire blocked the scallops with her armor only for the sharp weapons to dig into her armor. Naruto then slammed his head into hers, disorientating the girl, and he quickly kicked the gem on her collar, sending her flying back. Naruto then teleported behind her and caught her. Quickly ripping the gem off her collar, he watched her eyes dim. Soon her normal violet returned and she looked up at him and gave a weak smile. Thank you? She managed before passing out, and Naruto quickly used some healing jutsu on the girl, then picked her up and placed her over one shoulder before looking all around and narrowed his eyes. Someone is pulling strings, and I hate it when people pull strings, he said, then looked at the gem he'd pulled off of Blackfire's armor before putting that into his belt. He then noticed something in her ears and pulled those out as well, showing miniature headphones with a jagged black S on the front of each of them. Ravager, the blonde boy growled out before vanishing with his X-suit's teleportation function. Ravager smirked as she added the fight between Blackfire onto the screen. Playing on screen was Naruto's fights with Sasuke, the Konoha, the Titans, his days in the Hive as Tempest, and his earlier fight with Blackfire. Beside this screen, however, a computer compiles the techniques and abilities that the ex-shinobi has used thus far. The list thus far has Rasengan, Udama Rasengan, Chidori no Rasengan, Kage Bunshin, Bunshin Bakuha, 1000 Blades Jutsu, Futon, Maku Kaiten, a strange, sealing, ability. Wind element manipulation, natural healing abilities, skilled swordsman/tactician, expert use of kunai/shuriken, and master of various Shadow Claw fighting styles. His powers are all quite impressive. Ravager mused while Wintergreen nodded his head from her side. Did you expect anything less from him, madam? He has interested you for weeks on end after all. And this is possibly only the tip of the iceberg, as it were. Wintergreen commented, and Ravager nodded her head with a grin on her face as she watched Naruto as he faced and then dispatched his various opponents on screen. Yes. He is very intriguing indeed, Wintergreen. But I feel more of an evaluation of his skills is needed before I make my first move against him. Ravager mused, and Wintergreen nodded his head with a hum while the girl then stilled the screens of Naruto in his various costumes and gear. Quite the odd one. Let's see how you fare against someone who can read the future. Ravager quipped mostly to herself darkly while the screens cut off. Hive HQ. Naruto landed inside and quickly rushed to the infirmary, placing Blackfire down on a medical bed as soon as he arrived. He then did a cursory evaluation of the girl's health and found, besides a possible concussion, severe bruising, and the damage done to her armor, that the black-haired alien would be just fine. Sighing in relief, Naruto then reached up and pressed down on the buttons at his ears, the skull part lifting up as he then rubbed his eyes. Holy shit! Gizmo called out while looking at Blackfire, and Naruto rolled his eyes in slight annoyance. What happened to her, Tempest? Gizmo demanded, and Naruto crossed his arms. We had a little tussle, he said, and Gizmo gave him a look. She looks like she was dragged behind a train for a week, he shouted, and Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose before tossing the weird gem that had been on Blackfire's collar to the diminutive genius. That thing had some kind of mind-altering effect on her. While she had it on, she was going berserk through downtown. I stopped her from destroying everything and brought her here because she obviously wasn't in the right of mind, Naruto explained, and Gizmo frowned while looking over the gem. I'll be able to tell you what this sucker did by tomorrow, Temp, Gizmo said, and Naruto nodded before cupping his chin. When she wakes up, I want you to try and fix up Blackfire's armor as well, Giz. Also tell the others she's my guest until she makes a full recovery. As for me, I'm heading to my room to relax a bit. With that and a shake of his head, Naruto walked out of the room, with Gizmo nodding absently as he walked down the halls to find the others, and Naruto then turned down the hall to his room. Walking inside, he was surprised to find Jinx still there, and still reading the book he wrote with wide eyes. Whoa, is that even possible? The girl wondered, and Naruto chuckled lightly. The girl yelped hearing him and blushed as she quickly closed the book and gave him a sheepish expression. Tempest, you're back so soon? She asked, and Naruto looked to a clock and frowned at the girl. It's been 3 hours, he stated flatly, and Jinx blinked before chuckling nervously while rubbing the back of her head. And yes, the things in that book are possible, at least according to Erosenin they are, Naruto said, then mused, and Jinx snickered, figuring he meant his perverted sensei. The girl then got up off of Naruto's bed and smoothed out her skirt before walking towards the exit. Jinx, he said, and the girl stopped, giving him an innocent look. Book, he stated, holding out his hand, and the pink-haired girl nervously handed the book she had held behind her back to him. It's actually not that bad. It does have some smut in it, but not half as much as I originally expected, Jinx offered, and Naruto rolled his eyes before taking the book and tossing it onto his bed. So what happened while you were out? Jinx questioned, and Naruto groaned lightly. I had a run-in with a girl named Blackfire. She was under some weird mind control or something, as far as I can tell. Looks like this one freaky-looking jewel on her armor was causing it. I'd appreciate it if you would head over to the infirmary and see if I missed anything. I did a preliminary checkup, but I didn't think it would be ethical for me to check for anything else, Naruto explained while detaching his shoulder armor and sheath, allowing them to fall to the floor. Oh, okay, Tempest. But I was kind of wondering. Jinx said, then started, and Naruto looked at her while taking his gauntlets off. When do you think we're going to be meeting with your girlfriend? She asked with a forced smile, and Naruto blinked before chuckling and rubbing the back of his neck. Whenever she feels comfortable meeting with you guys, I guess. Naruto said, and Jinx blinked several times. You actually told her you're from the hive? She asked incredulously, and Naruto nodded his head. Why? She demanded, and Naruto rolled his eyes to his only real female friend besides his girlfriend. Because I don't like keeping secrets from her. If we're going to have any kind of a relationship, we actually have to talk about who we are, Jinx. Naruto stated flatly, and Jinx opened her mouth to say something, then closed it, and finally sighed. Alright, Temp, I'll go check on this Blackfire chick for you. Anything I should know beforehand? Jinx said, then questioned, and Naruto cupped his chin in thought. She's Tamaranian, but she has an extremely weak immune system according to something she said when we last fought. Naruto offered, and Jinx raised a brow before nodding her head and walking out of the room. Once the door was closed behind her, and she had made it out of earshot of Naruto's room, the girl twitched. Why are all the cute and nice guys all completely clueless? She wondered aloud while stomping down the halls to the infirmary while grumbling about the blonde-haired boy under her breath. When I do meet this mysterious girlfriend of his, I'm going to talk to her, all right. Jinx then said with an evil grin and pink energy spiraling around her left hand. Downtown. Jack groaned while he walked with several other officers, helping wounded get into ambulances. Just another ordinary day in Jump City. He thought to himself before rubbing his eyes and then calling out to an officer and having him head into and check out a building. What happened? A voice called out as Robin the Boy Wonder rushed over to him, and Jack grunted under his breath. Orange chick with black hair and powers like Starfire mean anything to you? Jack questioned, and Robin frowned to himself. Blackfire, he said, and Jack rolled his shoulders, producing several pops while the other Titans made it. Whoa, dude, someone went berserk on downtown, BB said while looking around, and Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out his smokes. Literally, the guy who stopped her seemed to say she wasn't acting right. And personally, the red eyes and non-stop growling also kind of tipped me off to that. Jack offered while lighting his cig and saw Starfire look around with worry. Guy who stopped her managed to rip this gem thing off her armor, and she just kind of stopped. Well, after he beat the unholy hell out of her at least. She kind of passed out after that. Jack then offered, and Starfire seemed even more worried while Robin frowned. Who was it that Naruto got to watch town for us? He wondered, then was about to ask when Jack grunted and rushed over to a slab of rock and lifted it up. Finding his M4 carbine, he pulled it out and then checked on the gun. Do you have a permit for that? Cyborg questioned, and Jack rolled his eyes before fishing something out of his pocket. Yeah, I also have a permit to live, considering that the bulk of your enemies throw cops like me around like rag dolls. Jack offered while showing the permit, and Sai checked it only to gawk. Whoa! You have a missile launcher? He asked, and Jack shrugged his shoulders. Some of us have to take Cinderblock down the hard way. He offered, and Robin pinched the bridge of his nose. Who was it that came down here and stopped Blackfire? He asked, and Jack shrugged his shoulders. To hell if I know. It was that freaky skull-masked ninja from the station a month back. I swear, I got out of the military to get away from this ninja shit. Jack grunted while his weird mannerisms suddenly made some sense. X? Robin questioned, and Jack shrugged his shoulders. I guess that's him. He did have a big red X on his mask and chest. Jack offered while taking a drag from his cigarette, and Robin frowned. How does Naruto know X? He wondered to himself, and Raven decided to add her own, fake, idea to the mix so that the boy wonder wouldn't get ideas. She had pretty much guessed Naruto and Red X were the same person, an educated guess but still a guess. However, she didn't feel the need to try and track him down when he had nothing they could hold him for, and would get them all into trouble more than anything. Maybe he's a mercenary, she offered, and Robin looked to her with a raised brow. As far as we know, X has kept a low profile on us since he fought with that Sasuke guy. From what we can gather, he went there to get Jinx out, Maybe the Hive kids hired him to bust her out. This time, he's appeared after I asked Naruto to find someone to watch over the city. Meaning more than likely, X is a kind of mercenary for hire by whoever can pay him the most. It would also go with his "I only look out for number one" motto, as he'd only be working for himself for the most part, for money. Raven offered, and Robin cupped his chin in thought while frowning slightly, though the idea did have merit. Maybe, either way we have work to do. Titans, spread out and help whoever you can, Robin ordered, and the group of teens moved out on the leader's orders while Jack merely rolled his eyes. Maybe I should mention he's friends with Jill or Jinx. Nah. Jack considered, then scoffed at the idea as he walked off to help with the cleanup with his hands placed into his pockets. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.